Chapter 468. The hundreds of people from the Sky Pillar sect were shocked when they heard the angry roar coming from the abyss. Everyone was familiar with that voice and could immediately tell that it was Ji Tianqing's voice. Indeed, when the Judgment Sword charged out of the abyss, a figure wrapped in golden light followed closely behind and charged into the dark sky. It was Ji Tianqing. When the crowd saw his figure that was as proud as a sword and as straight as a pine tree, they immediately burst into cheers of surprise. Seeing that he was unscathed and his aura was still as powerful and domineering as before, everyone revealed a relieved expression. Their hanging hearts finally settled back into their stomach. However, no one noticed that Ji Tianqing's face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He had already suffered serious injuries. However, with his indomitable will and the undying faith in his heart, he still persevered and retaliated angrily in a hopeless situation. In just a short breath, the judgment sword that he had formed from the sword embryo met the demonic cloud giant palm head-on. Boom! The demonic cloud giant palm and the golden light giant sword collided violently, and there was a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens. A huge hole was pierced through the demonic cloud giant palm that covered the sky and the sun, and it completely collapsed and exploded. A violent force burst forth, enveloping the endless demonic cloud giant palm and spreading in all directions. Instantly, the 2 mountains closest to it were also shaken by the shockwave. High in the sky, the demonic emperor's huge eyes revealed a look of astonishment. With a ferocious expression, he shouted coldly, "You're not dead, you worm! You're just a primal core realm ant, yet you can block my killer move. Does the Kenshin bloodline really have such heaven-defying power?" The more monstrous Ji Tianqing's performance was, the more the demonic emperor's hatred grew. He gnashed his teeth in anger. However, something that made him even more furious happened. After Ji Tianqing used the judgment sword to shatter the demonic cloud giant palm, he actually continued to charge into the sky and charged at the demonic emperor without fear of death. He flapped his golden wings and flew into the sky. He actually controlled the judgment sword to unleash an even more powerful force and stabbed at the demonic emperor's huge face. Shwa! The sword of judgment cut through the dark night sky, sprinkling down endless golden light, illuminating the surroundings. The demon emperor's giant face was 30 miles in radius. It was simply too big, and there was no way to dodge. However, the devil emperor's giant face was formed from boundless black clouds. It was as if it was real, tough, and its defense was extremely strong. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the sword of judgment ruthlessly stabbed into the Nephilim emperor's giant face. Suddenly, the entire demonic face began to distort violently, becoming extremely ferocious and terrifying. The indestructible sword of judgment had blasted a massive hole in the demon emperor's face that was over a kilometer in radius. The devil emperor continued to release demonic clouds in an attempt to mend the hole. However, the sword of judgment was spinning at an extremely fast speed, bursting out a peerless power, and fiercely tearing the hole, making it bigger and bigger. Not only that, but the sword of judgment was also trying to pierce through the demon emperor's giant face and kill his true body. The devilish sovereign was instantly enraged, and he roared in a frenzied manner, "You worm! You lowly and ugly reptile! How dare you attack this emperor? You must be tired of living." The devilish sovereign's voice was like thunder. Immediately, he waved his 6 giant arms and slammed them towards the sword of judgment. It wanted to smash the judgment sword into pieces, then kill Ji Tianqing, and devour him until not even dregs were left. Bam, bam, bam! The overwhelming blood-red palm shadows blasted onto the sword of judgment. The giant golden sword was instantly blasted back. The golden light flickered, and its power was significantly weakened. Ji Tianqing, who was standing in the sky, had a sudden change in expression. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. PFFF, The giant golden sword was his sword embryo. When the sword embryo was damaged, he was also severely injured, and his injuries were even more severe. Dark clouds surged out of the hole on the demonic emperor's giant face, quickly mending the hole. Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered to wipe off the blood at the corner of his mouth. He clenched his teeth and unleashed the remaining 40% of his strength into the giant golden sword. Swoosh! The 20-meter-long giant golden sword suddenly grew a little longer. It was almost 30 meters long, and it lit up with a dazzling golden light again. Sword of Judgment, break! Ji Tianqing roared in a hoarse voice. He controlled the giant golden sword with all his might and unleashed an unstoppable force towards the devilish sovereign's giant face again. Bam! The giant golden sword hit the devilish sovereign's giant face again and tore open a huge hole that hadn't healed yet. The devilish sovereign's giant face twisted again, and endless black clouds surged and churned. Ah! You bastard, you deserve to die! The devilish sovereign was completely enraged. The giant face let out a thunderous roar that shook the heavens and earth for dozens of miles. It unleashed a powerful demonic power, causing the giant face to shrink rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had shrunk to a radius of 10 miles. After the devilish sovereign's face shrank, the black clouds became more solid, and its defensive power increased by 3 times. Just as the sword of judgment was about to pierce through the devilish sovereign's face, it was blocked by the black clouds. However, Ji Tianqing's vital essence had been depleted, and he couldn't increase the power of the sword of judgment. He couldn't break through the black clouds at all. The giant golden sword was stuck in the devilish sovereign's face, trembling violently and making a buzzing sound. Ji Tianqing and the devilish sovereign were in a stalemate in the sky just like that. However, Ji Tianqing's vital essence had been depleted, and he was truly at the end of his rope. The injuries in his body couldn't be contained. His internal organs were all ruptured and fresh blood gushed out. Even though he gritted his teeth and held on with his strong willpower, blood kept flowing out of his mouth. His injuries kept worsening, and he couldn't hold on any longer. The giant golden sword was trembling more and more, and its power was weakening. It was about to be swallowed by the devilish sovereign's giant face. At this critical moment, a figure in a purple robe flew into the sky and let out a low shout. Tianqing, let me give you a hand. This person was Xiang Wuji. He had also been severely injured by the devilish sovereign. His body was covered in wounds, and his white hair and beard were stained with blood. Just now, he was circulating his energy to suppress his injuries. When he saw Ji Tianqing fighting the devilish sovereign alone and couldn't hold on any longer, he rushed over to help. Devilish sovereign, I'll fight it out with you. Today, even if the entire Sky Pillar sect dies here, we won't surrender. Xiang Wuji looked up at the devilish sovereign's giant face and roared tragically. Then, he activated all the true essence in his body and waved his hand to release a 5-colored light beam, which shot towards Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! After that dazzling 5-colored beam of light hit Ji Tianqing, it released a vast amount of vital essence that surged wildly into his body. Ji Tianqing was originally extremely weak, and was on the verge of collapse and unconsciousness. When Xiang Wuji's vital essence surged into him, his vital essence was immediately replenished, and he pulled himself together. The giant golden sword stuck in the devilish sovereign's giant face suddenly lit up with a dazzling golden light and regained its power and luster. The sword of judgment regained its power and immediately broke free from the devilish sovereign's giant face. The giant golden sword no longer trembled, and the buzzing sound quickly dissipated. The giant sword exploded with a violent and domineering power, tearing a huge hole in the devilish sovereign's face that was about to close up. Endless devilish chi leaked out from that huge hole and poured in all directions, scattering in the sky. The devilish sovereign roared furiously and desperately waved his 6 giant arms to attack the giant golden sword. The giant sword was hit until golden light splashed everywhere. It swayed from side to side and showed signs of breaking. Chapter 469. That huge golden sword was Ji Tianxing's sword embryo. Ji Tianxing was also in great pain and injuries after the sword embryo suffered such a heavy blow. His body trembled non-stop as blood gushed out of his nose and mouth. Unfortunately, Xiang Wuji's cultivation was not enough to help him fight against the Demon King. The two of them were no match for the Demon King even if they joined forces. They still could not escape death. At the peak of the towering Sky Peak and the Jade Sword Peak, hundreds of disciples, guards, and deacon elders of the towering Sky sect looked up at the scene in the sky. Seeing Ji Tianxing and Xiang Wuji fighting a bloody battle and on the verge of death, but still clenching their teeth and holding on, everyone's hearts were filled with grief and despair. Countless disciples looked at Ji Tianxing's figure and felt a deep sense of sorrow. They could not help but cry. Many people shouted, either cursing the Demon King's cruelty or praying for Xiang Wuji and Ji Tianxing. At this moment, Qian Yu and the little black dragon flew out of the crowd and into the sky. They shouted in unison, "Old Ji, we're here to help you." In the previous battle, Ji Tianxing had asked them to help the elders protect the disciples of the Towering Sky sect. Therefore, they had always felt regretful that they were not able to join forces with Ji Tianxing to fight against the strong enemy. Now that they saw that Ji Tianxing was seriously injured, they did not hesitate to step forward. The two of them flew into the sky and released icy blue pillars of light, injecting vast and mighty power into Ji Tianxing's body. Ji Tianxing's true essence was replenished and his strength increased by a few degrees. Yun Yao and Yen saw Ji Tianxing's tragic and blood-drenched appearance and tears welled up in their eyes. Yun Yao, who had always been as cold as a fairy, was now tear-stained. Her beautiful face was filled with worry and anxiety. Seeing Ji Tianxing's blood-drenched body still putting up a desperate fight, she immediately rushed out of the defensive array. "Tianxing, let me give you a hand." Yun Yao's voice was cold and her tone was firm. She reached out and pulled out the jade hairpin in her hair bun. After injecting her power into it, she transformed it into a pair of wings of wind and fire. Shwa! She flapped her fiery wind wings and flew into the sky filled with devil chi. She channeled all her power and threw a palm strike at Ji Tianxing. Suddenly, a ray of silver-white moonlight gushed out from her palm and rushed into Ji Tianxing's body. Ji Tianxing's strength recovered slightly. However, this was far from enough. Even if Yun Yao transferred all of her power to him, it would not be enough to help him resist the Devil Emperor. At this moment, Jiku also rushed out of the defensive array with tears streaming down his face. "Brother Tianxing, I'll help you too." When Ji Tianxing was fighting in the sky, she was busy protecting the Sky Pillar sect disciples and fighting the four great sects, the Ghost Army, and the Devil Race to the end. At this moment, she was already exhausted. Her hair was soaked in sweat, and her white robe had long been stained red with blood. Even so, she had to use her last bit of strength to fight side by side with Ji Tianxing. If Ji Tianxing was going to die here today, she would definitely not want to live. Then, Yen also stepped forward bravely and let out a firm and fearless roar with his tender voice. "Senior brother Tianxing, I also want to help you kill the Devil Emperor." Yen waved his palm and shot out a beam of flame light that flew toward Yun Yao in the sky. The beam of flame light contained all of his power, which was transferred to Ji Tianxing through Yun Yao. Seeing this scene, the Sky Pillar sect elders and deacons on the two mountain peaks all stepped out of the defensive array. Everyone looked up at the sky with a firm expression and roared tragically and resolutely. "Count me in to kill the Devil Emperor. Since we're going to die anyway, we swear to live and die with the Sky Pillar sect." The acting sect leader and the Grand Elder are fighting a bloody battle and disregarding their own lives. How can we live? Fight. Let's fight the Devil Emperor. Even if I die here, I want to die with a bang. How can there be an unbroken egg when the nest is overturned? We must unite as one to fight the Devil Emperor together. Together, the mountain becomes jade, and the earth becomes gold. Disciples of the Sky Pillar sect, let's attack together and help the acting sect leader kill the Devil Emperor. It's everyone's responsibility to eliminate the evil. One hot-blooded roar after another resounded from the two mountain peaks, shaking the heavens and the earth. The 9 elders and more than 30 deacons all released their majestic true essence. Rays of true essence of different colors hit Yun Yao and Xiang Wuji in the sky one after another, and they transmitted their power to Ji Tianqing. Even the hundreds of disciples and guards who were hiding in the defensive array also channeled their true essence and transmitted it to the deacons and elders. At this moment, the hundreds of people of the Sky Pillar sect were united as one, and their will was as strong as an impregnable fortress. No matter how strong or weak they were, they all did their best to help Ji Tianqing and fight the Devil Emperor together. The power of the hundreds of survivors turned into countless colorful beams of light and flew into the dark sky. In the end, everyone's power passed through Yun Yao and Xiang Wuji's hands and turned into 2 huge colorful beams of light that were injected into Ji Tianqing's body. With the power of several hundred martial artists gathered together, how powerful would that be? Ji Tianqing's power and aura immediately soared by dozens of times, reaching an extremely terrifying level. The endless true essence caused his body to swell violently, and he turned into a 5-meter-tall giant. The vast and mighty 5 elements origin energy lit up with a dazzling 5-colored light that revolved around his body, causing his figure to be as imposing as a god, sacred and dignified. The judgment sword that was formed by the sword embryo also grew to a length of 100 meters and released a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing raised his head and looked at the enormous face of the Devil Emperor in the sky, then growled out with a resonant voice, "Sword of Judgment, break!" Instantly, the Judgment Sword released an unstoppable aura and pierced through the Devil Emperor's giant face. The Devil Emperor's giant face that covered the sky was smashed into pieces by the giant sword and turned into black clouds that dissipated in all directions. Then, the Judgment Sword pierced the Devil Emperor's true body that was hidden behind the Devil Emperor's giant face. Bang! A deafening explosion rang out, spreading across a radius of dozens of miles. The sacred and dazzling giant sword shattered the Devil Emperor's 4 arms that were blocking in front of him and pierced into his chest. Instantly, the giant headless beast that was thousands of feet tall trembled and swayed under the attack of the Judgment Sword. There was a huge hole in his chest, and half of his body was covered in cracks. Endless blood gushed out and sprinkled in the sky. The Devil Emperor's true body had not been fully formed yet, but he was severely injured by Ji Tianqing's sword just like that. In extreme rage, he let out an earth-shattering roar with his divine soul. Ah! Damn it! You beast, reptile, lowly ant, you actually dared to destroy my true body. You are dead meat. No one in this world can save you. I swear I will consign you to eternal damnation and make your soul suffer for 1,000 years. Ji Tianqing ignored the Devil Emperor's roar and withdrew the Judgment Sword. He shrunk it 1,000 times and kept it in his body as a sword embryo. He stood proudly in the sky and looked at the Devil Emperor's true body indifferently. Then, he slowly stretched out his right hand. With the help of the power of hundreds of people, he activated the mysterious black hole with all his might. Swoosh! The black hole in his palm flew tens of thousands of feet high into the sky, turning into a pitch-black whirlpool that blotted out the sun and covered the sky within a radius of 10 miles. Then, he let out a loud roar in an imposing manner. Sword, come! Suddenly, a pitch-black, ice-cold shadow of a gigantic sword flew out from the mysterious vortex that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Chapter 470. At this moment, Ji Tianqing stood proudly high in the sky. His body was as imposing as a god, his white robes and golden battle robes fluttering in the wind. He was like a kenshin descending into the world, his aura divine and tyrannical to the extreme. The several hundred people of the Sky Pillar sect looked up at his tall and mighty back, forever engraving this scene into their memories. High in the sky, a massive black sword that was 10,000 feet long and towered over the world came crashing down with an unparalleled momentum. This massive black sword exuded an endless chill of death. It was like the divine sword of the Grim Reaper, striking awe and fear in everyone's hearts. The demon emperor stood in the demonic clouds, looking up at the massive black sword crashing down from above. His body trembled as he roared in grief and indignation. "It's actually you. Burial of heaven, you." It was clear that the demon emperor had sensed the aura of the massive black sword and recognized its identity. That's right. This massive sword that towered into the heavens was the heaven-span sword steel in Kenshin's tomb. However, the demon emperor's roar came to an abrupt halt. The heaven-span sword steel instantly struck him, exploding with a resounding boom that shook the highest heavens. Bang! The already heavily wounded demon emperor's true body was instantly blasted apart by the heaven-span sword steel. Its thousands of feet tall body shattered into billions of pieces of flesh and blood, scattering in the sky within a radius of dozens of miles. After his true body was destroyed, the demon emperor turned into a mass of pitch-black demonic fog. This was his undying divine soul. However, the heaven-span sword steel had not only shattered his true body, but also suppressed his divine soul and smashed it into the ground. Boom! A heaven-shaking explosion reverberated through the entire Sky Pillar sect for hundreds of miles. In that moment, the ground for hundreds of miles violently trembled, rocking up and down. A pitch-black abyss that was over 10,000 meters deep and 30 miles wide appeared on the ground. Endless dust burst out, blotting out the sky for dozens of miles. The destructive shockwaves caused more than half of the nearby 4 mountain peaks to collapse, nearly turning them into ruins. Half of the Sky Pillar sect was turned into a desolate ruin. Such destructive power and scene was simply not something a human could achieve. At the bottom of the dark abyss, the sky-reaching sword steel, which was thousands of meters tall, was suppressing the undying god soul of the Devil Emperor. The demonic emperor roared furiously and struggled with all his might. The heavenly sword steel shook violently, but he was unable to break free for the time being. "Burial of heaven! You bastard! I've already been suppressed for 1,000 years. Don't even think about suppressing me again." The demonic mist surged wildly, and the furious roar of the Devil Emperor's soul could be heard from within. The heavenly sword steel remained silent as it continued to unleash powerful energy to suppress the demonic emperor's divine soul. But at this moment, the Blood Demon King rushed over. It twisted its mountain-like body and flew to the bottom of the abyss. It attacked the heavenly sword steel with all its might, trying to rescue the soul of the Devil Emperor. The demonic emperor stopped struggling and said to the Blood Demon King in a low and dignified voice, "Blood Demon King, you told me before that as long as you can save me and revive my race, you will give up everything, including your life?" The Blood Demon King replied without hesitation, "That's right, Your Majesty Demonic Emperor. This subordinate is loyal to you and is willing to give up everything for you." "Very good," the demonic emperor shouted in a low and dignified voice. "Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise and sacrifice for the revival of my race." With that, the demonic emperor's divine soul released a black mist that shrouded the Blood Demon King's body. Before the Blood Demon King could react, its mountain-like body was rapidly corroded and melted away. Its flesh and soul were devoured by the demonic emperor and turned into a dark red light that surged into the demonic emperor's divine soul. In just a few short breaths, the Blood Demon King's body had turned into a huge skeleton. After devouring its flesh and soul, the demonic emperor temporarily gained an incomparably powerful strength. "Burial of heaven! Get lost for this emperor!" The demonic emperor roared furiously and released a dazzling bloody light, igniting a monstrous bloody flame that fiercely blasted at the heaven-span sword steel. The power of the blood demon king's flesh and soul burst out and immediately sent the heaven-span sword steel flying. Swoosh! The heaven-span sword steel flew more than a dozen miles away and smashed into the cliff of the abyss, causing the earth and mountains within a radius of dozens of miles to shake. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the demonic emperor's divine soul released a bloody flame and flew out of the abyss as fast as lightning, fleeing into the distant sky. It used a secret technique of the demonic race and turned into a bloody stream of light. In the blink of an eye, it traversed dozens of miles in the sky and fled from the sky pillar sect. However, as it fled in panic, it did not forget to leave behind a furious roar filled with killing intent and resentment. Ji Tianxing, this emperor will remember you. Soon, when this emperor recovers, this emperor will return today's enmity 100-fold. The demonic emperor's divine soul's furious roar reverberated in the sky above the sky pillar sect. Unfortunately, Ji Tianxing could not hear these words. After he released his strongest trump card, without the support of the true essence of the others, he exhausted all his strength and mind and immediately fainted. His body suddenly shrank to its normal size and fell straight from the sky, smashing into the ruins below. The pitch-black whirlpool in the sky and the heaven-span sword steel in the abyss shrank countless times and flew back into his body. Seeing Ji Tianxing fall from the sky, Xiang Wuji hurriedly flew over to catch him. When he landed on the ruins and lowered his head to check Ji Tianxing's injuries, his expression immediately turned ugly. This was because Ji Tianxing's body was covered in dense cracks, and endless blood was gushing out, completely dyeing him red. His fleshly body was on the verge of collapsing like a cracked ceramic. Moreover, he no longer had a heartbeat and breathing. His body was like a corpse, and his body temperature was gradually dropping, about to become ice cold. Tianxing, Tianxing, wake up! You've already defeated the demonic emperor and he fled in a panic. Nothing must happen to you. Xiang Wuji hugged Ji Tianxing, whose body was gradually turning cold. His eyes were red as he roared, his body trembling. He did not want to accept or believe that Ji Tianxing had died in battle just like that. But the truth was right in front of him. Ji Tianxing's body was gradually turning cold, and his vitality had already dissipated. Xiang Wuji stood on the ruins, trembling as he raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the sky. His wrinkled old eyes were silently filled with tears. No. Heavens! Why are you so cruel? We fought to the end and finally defeated the demonic emperor, but Tianxing will never come back. Why? Does the heavens want my sky pillar sect to perish? Xiang Wuji roared hysterically at the sky. He used up all his remaining strength, and his voice was filled with grief, anger, and despair. This Sky Origin stage powerhouse had dominated the 9 regions of the southern continent for 200 years. He had seen countless storms and experienced countless deaths in his life. But in his life, he had never roared with such grief and anger as he did now. The number of times this eccentric old man had shed tears in his life could be counted on one hand. At this moment, he did not care about the dignity of a powerhouse or the demeanor of an elder. Finally, tears fell from his eyes. Men did not cry easily, unless they were deeply hurt. No one knew that every time Xiang Wuji scolded Ji Tianxing, his heart was filled with hope and expectation. When he mocked and ridiculed Ji Tianxing, his heart was filled with joy and pride. Moreover, no one knew that he saw Ji Tianxing as his own grandson and regarded him as the pride of his life. Chapter 471. The tragic and bloody battle had finally come to an end. Soon, the surviving disciples of the Sky Pillar sect left the Sky Pillar Peak and the Jade Sword Peak. Many elders and deacons, Yun Yao, Yener Jiku, Qian Yu, and the little black dragon all heard Xiang Wuji's sorrowful cry. No one had the time to adjust their breathing or treat their injuries. They all rushed to Xiang Wuji's side as fast as they could. Grand Supreme Elder, what happened to Ji Tianxing? Tianxing. Everyone came to Xiang Wuji's side and saw his soulless and sorrowful appearance. They immediately had a bad premonition. Everyone's eyes fell on Ji Tianxing. Seeing him covered in blood and not breathing, everyone's hearts sank. Their expressions became solemn and sorrowful. Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and Yen couldn't wait to rush to Ji Tianxing's side to check on his injuries. When Ji Ku and Yen sensed that Ji Tianxing's body was cold and his breathing was cut off, their expressions changed drastically and their faces turned pale. Yen's eyes widened in disbelief. She cried out in a sorrowful voice, "Senior brother Tianxing, he actually?" Qian Yu and the little black dragon stared at Ji Tianxing and cried out in shock, Old Ji, what happened to you?" Ji Ku's pretty face was also as pale as paper. Her body stiffened on the spot, and large teardrops gushed out of her eyes. She reached out to caress Ji Tianxing's cold face and shook her head desperately. She cried out in grief, "No! This is impossible! Big brother Tianxing won't die." She had already exhausted her strength and mind. Suddenly suffering such a blow, her vision turned black and she fainted. When she heard Ji Ku say the word die, Yun Yao froze on the spot as if she had been struck by lightning. Her expression changed drastically, and her heart instantly tightened. Her clear eyes revealed a look of disbelief, and were covered with a layer of mist. "It can't be. Tianxing will be fine." "Absolutely not." Her eyes were fixed on Ji Tianxing's face, as if she was muttering to herself, but the clear tears in her eyes fell silently. At this moment, it was as if someone had grabbed her throat and heart. Her heartbeat and breathing had stopped. Even her mind had lost its ability to think, becoming completely blank. She couldn't bear such a heavy blow for a moment. Her throat heated up and she spat out a mouthful of hot blood. PFFF, when Yun Yao was young in Cloud Spirit Palace, she had read many history books, biographies, and stories in her free time. There were many famous biographies that wrote of beautiful women who missed their husbands or husbands so much that they vomited blood day and night and died within a few days. At that time she simply could not understand it, nor was she willing to believe it. She only thought that the author of the book had deliberately made it up and exaggerated it. But now she actually coughed up blood as well. She finally experienced the feeling of having her heart twisted by a knife, and the pain felt like it was being cut by a knife. She stared at Ji Tianxing and reached out her hands in a daze. She held his blood-stained and gradually cold face. Why would you be so stupid? Everyone knows to seek benefits and avoid harm. But you stepped forward bravely and sacrificed your own life to protect the Sex Foundation? Yun Yao murmured with a mournful expression. She seemed to have forgotten that she was in the ruins of a battlefield and that there were people around her. At this moment, there was only Ji Tianxing in her eyes. The elders and deacons around her were filled with sorrow. Their hearts were heavy as they shook their heads and sighed softly. The demonic clouds and haze in the sky gradually dissipated, and the setting sun gradually revealed itself, shining its warm rays on the ruins. However, the atmosphere was incomparably sorrowful and heavy. Xiang Wuji held Ji Tianxing and raised his head, trying his best not to let the tears in his eyes fall. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to suppress the sorrow in his heart. He said in a hoarse voice, "Elders, let's arrange the deacons and disciples to clean up the battlefield. I'm going to take Tianxing to the spiritual medicine peak to send him on his last journey. He's a great hero of our Sky Pillar sect. He's the hero who saved the ancient realm of stars and the Tianxin region. Even if the heavens are jealous of his talent and let him leave like this, I'm going to let him leave in glory. I'm going to let the world remember what he did today and his achievements." Xiang Wuji clenched his teeth and almost roared those words. Then, he was about to leave with Ji Tianxing's corpse and go to the spiritual medicine peak. However, at this moment, Yun Yao, who had been looking sad, suddenly exclaimed. Her eyes shone brightly. Wait, he's not dead. Yun Yao suddenly discovered something. Her face was full of surprise, and her tone was excited as she shouted. Xiang Wuji, the elders, and the deacons' faces changed. Their eyes were filled with excitement. What? Tianxing's not dead. That's great. But Tianxing's aura is gone. Yeah, Tianxing's pulse and aura are gone. Yun Yao, we understand how you feel. Yun Yao ignored everyone's questions. She held Ji Tianxing's face with both hands and used some kind of secret technique. After a while, she sensed something and confirmed the result. Then, her tears turned into laughter. She said excitedly, "That's right. Tianxing's not dead. I have the bloodline of the celestial spirit sacred body. I'm very sensitive to the soul aura of different races. I've checked just now. Tianxing's spiritual aura is still there. It's just that his injuries are too severe." After hearing what she said, everyone finally believed her. They were all very excited. Yen wiped away the tears in her eyes. She exclaimed excitedly, "That's great. I knew Shi Xiang Tianxing would not die." Qian Yu and the little black dragon were also overjoyed. They flew in circles in the sky. "I knew it. Old Ji is so lucky. How could he die so easily? Old Ji is so young. There's no way he would die so young." Xiang Wuji was so excited that his face was flushed. He was so excited that he could not speak properly. He nodded and said, "Good, good. As long as he's not dead. There's still hope if he's not dead. No matter how badly injured he is, this old man will do everything in his power to save him." Then, Xiang Wuji carried Ji Tianxing into the sky and rushed to the spiritual medicine peak. Yun Yao, Yener Qianyu, and the little black dragon also rushed to Xiang Wuji to help treat Ji Tianxing's injuries. The elders also ordered the deacons to lead the disciples to treat the injured, clean up the battlefield, and clean up the aftermath. Jiku, who had fainted from grief, was also brought back to the spiritual medicine peak by the spiritual medicine elder to treat his injuries. The sky was clear again. The blue sky, white clouds, and the setting sun reappeared. The gloomy and deadly aura brought by the demonic king finally disappeared. Chapter 472. 2 days quickly passed. The bitter and cruel battle destroyed more than half of the sky pillar sect. The Scarlet Firmament Peak and the 9-Dragon Spirit Vein were completely destroyed. The 4 mountains, including the Sky Pillar Peak and the Jade Sword Peak, were also almost destroyed. Such heavy losses dealt a heavy blow to the Sky Pillar sect. Next, the Sky Pillar sect would have to recuperate for at least a dozen years to slowly recover. Although the area within the Sky Pillar sect was still filled with craters and ruins, the fog had dissipated. However, the haze of the great battle had already dissipated, and the demon emperor had already fled far away. It was impossible for him to appear in the near future. More than half of the elders, deacons, and disciples had survived. As long as these mainstays were still there, the Sky Pillar sect would be able to hold on and survive this crisis. Now, all the survivors were temporarily staying on the Spiritual Medicine Peak and the Creek Peak. The palace at the top of the Spiritual Medicine Peak had also become a temporary meeting hall. It was early in the morning and the elders were having a meeting in the hall. Xiang Wuji sat at the head of the hall and presided over the meeting. Several elders stood in the main hall, their expressions and auras somewhat solemn and heavy. Xiang Wuji said with a solemn expression, "First Elder, it has been 2 days since the battle. You were in charge of cleaning up the battlefield and dealing with the aftermath. What's the result?" First Elder Mu Yunhai stepped forward and cupped his hands. "Reporting to Grand Elder, this subordinate has already calculated the casualties of this battle." He raised his head and looked at Xiang Wuji before solemnly saying, "In this battle, our sect lost a total of 5,800 people. 4,200 of them were odd-job disciples." After the battle began, Elder Chu and a dozen outer sect deacons quickly moved the outer sect disciples to the underground fortress. Therefore, the number of outer sect disciples who died was relatively low. Only 800 people died and 3,100 people survived. The inner sect disciples participated in the battle and lost more people. More than 500 people died, and only 300 people survived. In addition, more than 300 guards died, 22 deacons died, and the 5th and 8th elders also died. Everyone listened to the first elder's report and heard the bloody numbers. Their hearts were very heavy. After the first elder finished, Xiang Wuji slightly nodded and said in a deep voice, "Our sect did suffer heavy losses in this battle. This is the heaviest disaster in the past 400 years. However, most of our disciples managed to survive. As long as people are still alive, there is still hope. We can rebuild the sect and slowly recover our vitality." At this time, Xiang Wuji continued to ask, "Grand Elder, how are the casualties of the 4 great sects and the demons?" This was a question that everyone was concerned about. Several elders hurriedly listened attentively. The great elder sneered and said hatefully, "Those bastards from the 4 major sects, they've really harmed themselves and others this time. They're digging their own graves." All the members of the Tianjin sect, including sect leader Gao Yi, guest elder Huangfu, and the 6 elders, as well as thousands of deacons, guards, and disciples, were all wiped out. Not a single person was spared. From the sect master to the elders, deacons, and disciples of the Thousand Autumns sect, over 700 people had all died. Not a single one of them had escaped. Almost all of the members of the true martial sect had died. After the battle, only a few dozen people had survived. But after I discovered them, I ordered them all to be executed. It was the same for the Wind-Fire sect. After the war, there were over 100 people who survived, but they were all executed by my order. These bastards deserved to die. They deserved to be cut into pieces. As for the thousands of demons, they were all killed in the chaotic battle. Hearing this, the elders nodded with hatred, expressing their approval of the great elder's actions. The people of the 4 major sects are the main culprit. They deserve to be killed. If our sect hadn't defeated the demon emperor, the ancient star realm and the heavenly stellar region would have been plunged into misery and suffering. The 4 major sects would have been sinners for all eternity. After this battle, more than half of the elites of the 4 major sects have been killed. They only exist in name now. I heard that the Tianjin sect is in chaos. Over the past 2 days they've been fighting each other. Many of their disciples have fled. It's the same for the Thousand Autumns sect. The sect master and elders are all dead. The disciples are also fighting over the sect's property. After the elders finished their discussion, Xiang Wuji asked the great elder, "Are the sect masters of the true martial sect and the Wind-Fire sect also dead?" The great elder nodded and said, "Although I didn't find their bodies, they only have tattered robes and armor left. They're also stained with blood. They should be dead." Xiang Wuji thought for a moment, then said murderously, "It's fine. We don't have to worry about them for now. Once the sect is rebuilt, if they're lucky enough to survive, I'll personally find them and send them to hell. Alright, we still have to work hard for half a year to rebuild the sect. When Chu Tianxing comes out of seclusion, I'll work with him to rebuild the spirit vein formation." After they finished talking about the sect matters, the several elders all fell silent. The great elder thought for a moment, then asked worriedly, "Grand Elder, how's Tianxing? Has he woken up?" When he mentioned Ji Tianxing's injuries, Xiang Wuji's eyes dimmed and his heart sank. He shook his head and said in a heavy voice, "Tianxing's injuries are too severe. He's been attacked by hundreds of people. His physical body is already dead, and only a trace of his soul remains. Even though he's in deep sleep, we don't know when he'll wake up. With this old man's strength, even if we use up all of our sect's financial and material resources, we still won't be able to save him. After all, I'm only of the sky origin stage. I can only heal his physical body, but not his soul. I'm afraid only those who have surpassed the sky origin stage can heal him. At this point, Xiang Wuji could only sigh helplessly. The elders all frowned. Their expressions were grave as they discussed in low voices. His physical body is dead, and only a trace of his soul remains? Doesn't that mean he's a living dead? The heavens really don't have eyes. Tianxing is our sex hero. He's our future hope. How can he be in such a state? God is jealous. The great elder sighed and asked, Grand Elder, what do you plan to do? In the entire Tianqin region, or even the entire southern region, it's impossible to find a cultivator above the sky origin stage. Could it be that Tianxing can only sleep in the secret room forever? That he can only live as a living dead? Xiang Wuji sighed and said in a heavy voice, Right now, I can only use the best spiritual medicine to protect Tianxing's body. Chapter 473. Inside the Spirit Medicine Hall, in a secret room filled with spirit qi. A spirit qi gathering array was set up in the secret room. It gathered the spirit qi of heaven and earth, making the secret room full of spirit qi. There was an ice jade bed in the corner, emitting wisps of cold white mist. Ji Tianxing was lying on the jade bed peacefully with his eyes closed. He was motionless and did not make any sound. On the surface, there were almost no wounds on his body. However, his internal organs, meridians, and acupoints were almost all broken. Also, his skin was covered with fine cracks. In the past 2 days, Xiang Wuji had used all his strength and countless rare spirit medicines to heal his injuries. It was also because of this that the cracks all over his body were able to heal quickly and become more and more shallow. Perhaps in another 3 to 5 days, all the cracks on his body would be healed and disappear. In addition, the white robe that Ji Tianxing was wearing before was almost dyed red by blood. The white robe he was wearing now was clean and neat, as white as new. Last night, Yun Yao helped him change into it when there was no one in the secret room. At this moment, other than Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao was the only one in the secret room. She sat on the stone stool beside the jade bed and stared at Ji Tianxing. She had been guarding Ji Tianxing for 2 days and 2 nights. She did not leave him at all and almost did not sleep. Although she was exhausted and looked very tired and haggard, she did not want to leave. It was as if she was afraid that if she left, Ji Tianxing's soul would be extinguished and he would really leave her. In the 2 days that she stayed by Ji Tianxing's side, Yun Yao had been thinking about 2 questions. When I saw Tianxing's aura disappear and his body die, why did I feel like my heart was being stabbed and I vomited blood on the spot? If no miracle happens to him, and he's like an ordinary person, where his physical body dies, he's truly dead. What should I do now? These 2 questions flashed back and forth in her mind. She thought about many things, including the first time she met Ji Tianxing and everything that had happened in the past 6 months. She even fantasized that in the future, if Ji Tianxing didn't wake up, she would always guard Ji Tianxing until the day he woke up. However, no matter how much she thought about it, she couldn't think of the answers to those 2 questions. Or perhaps, she already had the answer in her heart, but she was still unable to believe or confirm it. In short, for the past 2 days, Ji Tianxing was the only thing in her eyes and in her mind. Everything she saw and every thought that came to her mind was related to Ji Tianxing. This feeling was very strange. It was something that Yun Yao had never experienced before in her life. At this moment, the stone door of the secret chamber creaked open. Xiang Wuji walked in. When he saw that Yun Yao was still sitting by the jade bed and protecting Ji Tianxing in a daze, he couldn't help but sigh silently in his heart. Tianxing, oh Tianxing, you're so lucky. Yun Yao is infatuated with you, and that girl Ji Ku is also dead set on you. If you still have a conscience, wake up quickly. At this moment, Yun Yao was awakened by the sound of footsteps. She quickly got up and bowed. Disciple greets Grand Elder. No need for formalities. Xiang Wuji waved his hand and said in a concerned tone, Yun Yao, Tianxing can only sleep now. It's useless for you to guard him here. Ever since the battle, you haven't rested at all. You didn't even treat your injuries. This can't go on. Yun Yao shook her head gently. Grand Elder, my injuries are fine. I just want to guard Tianqing. Sigh. Xiang Wuji couldn't persuade her and could only sigh helplessly. Yun Yao was silent for a moment. She pursed her thin lips and said in a serious tone, Grand Elder, disciple has been thinking about something for the past 2 days. I hope you can approve of it. What is it? Xiang Wuji raised his eyebrows. It has to do with Tianqing, right? Yes. Yun Yao nodded and said in a serious tone, Grand Elder, after Tianqing's injuries are stabilized, disciple wants to bring him back to Cloud Soul Palace in Zhongzhou. Perhaps the people in Cloud Soul Palace will have a way to wake Tianqing up. Of course, Xiang Wuji knew that Yun Yao came from Cloud Soul Palace. He also knew that Cloud Soul Palace was mysterious and powerful. It was one of the few ancient families in Zhongzhou. He only pondered for a moment and then nodded in agreement. Just now in the meeting hall, the elders also told me about this. Tianqing's injuries involve his soul. Even Sky Origin cultivators can't do anything about it. If you want to heal his injuries, only Sky Origin Transcendence and above can do it. Cloud Soul Palace is an ancient family. There must be many powerful cultivators and transcendents in the palace. If you bring Tianqing back to Cloud Soul Palace and let the transcendents treat him, he will be safe. This is your kind intention and also Tianqing's good fortune. I can't ask for anything more. Why would I stop you? Seeing that Xiang Wuji nodded in agreement, Yun Yao bowed and said, Thank you, Grand Elder, for your help. Xiang Wuji waved his hand to indicate that she could dispense with the formalities. He said in a serious tone, The journey to Zhongzhou is long. It will take at least a month. You must rest and recover your strength. Tianqing's physical injuries will take another half a month to heal. You should take advantage of this time to recuperate. Yun Yao understood this, but she was still worried. But if disciple goes to heal, who will take care of Tianqing? Just as Xiang Wuji was about to speak, a clear voice came from outside the secret room. Eldest senior sister, let me take care of big brother Tianqing. Yun Yao and Xiang Wuji turned to look at the door and saw Jiku walking into the secret room. That day, Jiku was too sad and fainted. She was unconscious for an entire night before waking up. For the past 2 days, she ignored her injuries and came to visit Ji Tianqing more than 10 times a day. However, Yun Yao stayed by Ji Tianqing's side. It was inconvenient for her to stay and avoid awkwardness. If that wasn't the case, she would definitely stay by Ji Tianqing's side without even blinking. Yun Yao nodded at Jiku and revealed a kind look. Junior sister Cuckoo, I'll have to trouble you. Jiku shook her head and said sincerely, As long as big brother Tianqing can get better, I'm willing to do anything. It's not difficult at all. Yun Yao only nodded slightly and didn't say anything. However, her eyes dimmed a little, and a strange thought appeared in her mind. If only I could be as innocent and straightforward as Jiku. How nice would that be? Jiku muttered to herself. When she thought of this, she actually envied Jiku. She could love someone without any restraint. The matter of going to Zhongzhou's Cloud Soul Palace was settled. In the next few days, Jiku guarded Ji Tianqing. Yun Yao returned to the secret room to heal her injuries and recover her strength. Chapter 474. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Now, the Sky Pillar sect had calmed down, and the situation in the ancient star realm had also stabilized. Several elders and many deacons were leading thousands of disciples to rebuild the sect in full swing. Yun Yao had been cultivating in seclusion for 10 days. Her injuries had basically healed, and her strength had also recovered. Early in the morning, after she ended her seclusion, she immediately went to the secret room where Ji Tianqing was. When she entered the secret room, she saw that Xiang Wuji and Ji Ku were both there. Xiang Wuji was checking on Ji Tianqing's injuries, and his face was filled with surprise and joy. Although Jiku looked tired and was not in a good state of mind, he was also filled with joy. Yun Yao quickly walked over and asked Xiang Wuji, Grand Elder, how is Tianqing's condition? Xiang Wuji's face was filled with disbelief, and he said excitedly, It's unbelievable! I thought that Tianqing's physical injuries would take at least half a month to stabilize. I didn't expect that his physique would be so special. It's comparable to a Sky Origin Realm cultivator, and it only took 10 days to stabilize. Hearing this, Yun Yao was also surprised and happy. She carefully sized up Ji Tianqing and found that the fine cracks on his body had all disappeared. As expected, Yun Yao nodded and said in a gratified tone, Tianqing has the Kenshin bloodline, and his physique is far stronger than ordinary cultivators. He also has a strong self-healing ability. At this time, Xiang Wuji continued, Also, I can vaguely feel that Tianqing's soul is not asleep. He still has consciousness. His soul seems to be silently gathering strength and healing his injuries. Otherwise, his injuries would not have stabilized so quickly. After hearing Xiang Wuji's explanation, Yun Yao became even more excited. She could not wait to bring Ji Tianqing back to Cloud Soul Palace. Jiku had a strange look in his eyes as he asked cautiously, Grand Supreme Elder, do you mean that Big Brother Tianqing's soul is still awake? Then if we speak beside him, won't he be able to hear us? Xiang Wuji thought for a moment and nodded. That's very likely. Jiku's little face instantly turned crimson red. She quickly turned her head to look elsewhere. Her gaze was somewhat evasive and filled with shyness. After all, during the 10 days that she had been guarding Ji Tianqing, she would often talk to Ji Tianqing. She had hidden the words in her heart for many years, words that she wanted to say but did not dare to say, all at once. When she thought that Ji Tianqing might have heard those words, she blushed and her heart raced. She couldn't control herself. Fortunately, Xiang Wuji and Yun Yao's attention was on Ji Tianqing, so they didn't notice her abnormality. Yun Yao checked on Ji Tianqing's injuries again. After confirming that Ji Tianqing's injuries were stable and there were no more problems, she said to Xiang Wuji, Grand Supreme Elder, since Tianqing's injuries have been stabilized, this disciple has decided to depart immediately. No problem. Xiang Wuji nodded in agreement. He waved his hand and sent out a ray of true essence into the frost jade bed. Immediately, the frost jade bed lit up with a dense white light. Soon, a change occurred. A moment later, the frost jade bed turned into a huge crystal-clear jade box, tightly protecting Ji Tianqing. As Xiang Wuji used a secret technique, the huge jade box that was over 3 meters long gradually shrank to the size of a palm. He handed the jade box to Yun Yao and said with a serious expression, Yun Yao, I'll leave Tianqing to you. Don't worry and go to the central state. I'll preside over the matter of rebuilding the sect. You don't have to worry about the sect. Just take good care of Tianqing. Yun Yao accepted the jade box and put it away properly. Then, she said with a serious expression, Grand Supreme Elder, please don't worry. I'll do everything I can to save Tianqing. Jiku also looked at Yun Yao with eyes full of hope. He said sincerely, Eldest senior sister, I'll leave Big Brother Tianqing to you. Yun Yao looked at her calmly and nodded silently. Then, Yun Yao bid farewell to the two of them and left the secret room. Not long after, she rode the white crane spirit beast and left the Sky Pillar sect. She flew all the way to the north. From the Tianqin region to the central state, she had to cross tens of thousands of mountains and rivers. Even if the spirit crane rushed at full speed, it would take at least a month. After the spirit crane flew out of the star ancient realm, Yun Yao sat cross-legged on the back of the crane and closed her eyes to rest. The next month would be a long and boring journey. It would make her extremely tired and haggard. In Kenshin's tomb, the vast space was still dark and cold. The pitch-black sword steel, which was thousands of feet tall, stood quietly in the wasteland. It was surrounded by surging spirit energy. Back then, in order to kill the demon emperor's true body and suppress his soul, The heavenly sword steel had used up a huge amount of spirit energy. Now, the burial of heaven was quietly recuperating and recovering its vitality. Below the sword steel, there was a white fog wrapped in a layer of 5-colored spirit energy. It was attached to the heavenly sword steel. This white fog gently surged and occasionally condensed into a human figure, showing the appearance of a white-robed youth. There was no doubt that this was Ji Tianxing's soul white fog. After the battle with the demon emperor, his injuries were too serious and he almost died on the spot. At the critical moment, the burial of heaven sensed that something was wrong and swallowed his soul into the Kenshin's tomb, saving his life. Even so, his soul was severely injured and his strength was extremely weak. He could only rely on the sword steel to recuperate quietly. At this time, the soul white fog surged for a while and condensed into a palm-sized white person. It was Ji Tianxing. He frowned gloomily and muttered in a low voice, "Burial of heaven, although I can use my soul to comprehend and cultivate the 8th level of the path of the sword heart, the effect is too weak." The burial of heaven's voice came from the heavenly sword steel. The path of the sword heart is the perfect combination of sword skills and body refinement. It can only cultivate the body to the limit of the celestial being and condense the heart of the sword. Now that your soul is separated, you are lucky to be able to keep your life. How can you ask for more? Ji Tianxing sighed and said with some emotion, "Now that you are a remnant soul and I am a heavily injured soul, we are in the same boat." The burial of heaven was silent and speechless. Ji Tianxing continued, "Burial of heaven, I heard the Supreme Elder and Yun Yao talk about it before. Only transcendence can heal my injuries. The transcendence they are talking about should be experts above the celestial origin realm, right? What realm is that? Why are they called transcendents?" The burial of heaven was silent for a while and then said in a low voice, "Now that you have experienced the situation of your soul being separated, I can tell you. The celestial origin realm is the limit that ordinary warriors can reach. When the strength of the body reaches the limit, it can delay aging and death, have a lifespan of 300 to 500 years, and can control the power of the 5 elements. If a celestial origin realm expert wants to go further, they have to surpass the limits of the body and cultivate to strengthen their soul. When the soul is strong enough, it can produce all kinds of inconceivable magical powers and have unimaginable strength and means. Therefore, this realm is called the soul refining realm, and soul refining realm experts are also called transcendent. Because they have surpassed the mortal realm and reached a whole new realm, their life level is higher and they are no longer bound by the aging and death of the body. As long as the soul is not destroyed, they are immortal. After listening to the burial of heaven's explanation, Ji Tianxing was shocked and yearned for it. He asked doubtfully, "In that case, doesn't that mean that soul-refining realm experts are immortal? No wonder the demon emperor could still wreak havoc in the world after being suppressed for 1,000 years." The burial of heaven explained, "No, soul-refining realm experts only live longer. Once the power of the soul is exhausted, they will die." Chapter 475. The burial of heaven's words made Ji Tianxing think of Kenshin. Even if one was as powerful as the sword god, he would still die. Thinking of this, his mood was as heavy as the burial of heavens. Both of them were silent. After a long time, the burial of heaven said in a low voice, "You and I are both remnant souls. I can't help you recover from your injuries. You can only wait for your lover to find a transcendent expert to save you. Only then can you recover from your injuries and leave this place. Before that, you should focus on cultivating the path of the sword heart and slowly recover from your physical injuries." Ji Tianxing nodded and said helplessly, "That's all I can do now." After that, the burial of heaven fell into a deep sleep again and silently recovered his vitality. Ji Tianxing continued to comprehend the 8th level of the path of the sword heart and subtly healed his physical injuries. Time flew by like a shuttle. A month passed quickly. That evening, the spirit crane was flying thousands of feet high in the sky, hurrying along as fast as lightning. Yun Yao sat upright on the crane's back with her eyes closed. Her beautiful face and brows were filled with fatigue, and her mind was very haggard. After a month of continuous travel, she finally returned to Zhongzhou and entered the territory of Cloud Soul Palace. After flying for another 100 miles, she would return to Cloud Soul Palace, which she had been away from for a long time. Ever since she left Cloud Soul Palace and entered the Sky Pillar sect, she hadn't returned in all these years. Now, she looked down at the mountains and rivers below. Seeing the familiar mountains and primitive forests, she felt a little homesick. Her mood was a little complicated, and she couldn't help but have some thoughts in her mind. If I come back alone, Father and Mother will definitely be happy. But if I come back with Tianxing and ask Mother to save him, I wonder how Father and Mother will react when they see Tianxing? She had always had a cold personality, like a fairy who didn't eat the food of mortals. Anyone who knew her would think that she would never do such a thing. After all, she didn't even look at the number one genius of the human race, the most honorable son of heaven, so how could she fall for other men? And now, she had returned with Ji Tianxing. This would definitely make everyone shocked and feel that it was inconceivable. After the news got out, there would be all kinds of speculations and rumors. Yun Yao didn't care about other people's opinions, but she was worried about her parents' attitude and Ji Tianxing's injury. Unknowingly, the spirit crane had already flown hundreds of miles away. There was a 30 kilometers tall peak ahead that towered into the sea of clouds, and it stood towering in the boundless mountain range. Only then did Yun Yao gather her thoughts and control the spirit crane to fly high into the sky. Shwa! The spirit crane passed through the vast sea of clouds high in the sky and flew to the sky above the sea of clouds. A dark green mountain peak could be vaguely seen amidst the boundless sea of white clouds in front of him. On the peak of the mountain with a radius of 100 miles stood a magnificent, majestic, and sacred palace. The towering palace that seemed to have existed since ancient times was none other than Cloud Spirit Palace. The setting sun high in the sky shone diagonally on Cloud Spirit Palace, reflecting thousands of five-colored auspicious chi like a rainbow. The towering palace was enveloped by boundless spirit chi, and there were thousands of rays of sunlight surrounding it. Below the palace was a vast sea of clouds, making the palace look like a heavenly palace, a paradise for immortals. In front of the main entrance of Cloud Spirit Palace, there were 99 wide and flat green jade steps. On every step of the green jade steps, there were 2 guards in silver armor standing on the left and right sides of the step. These guards had swords hanging from their waists, and their bodies were straight, exuding a majestic and solemn aura. Under the green jade steps, there was a huge square with a radius of 1,000 miles. The square's ground was paved with extremely tough sky gold stone, and it looked like huge golden bricks that shone with a brilliant golden light under the setting sun. On both sides of the square, there were 2 rows of huge statues that were hundreds of feet tall. There were a total of 8 statues, and they were all lifelike. There were both men and women. Every statue had an extraordinary aura, and the people that were carved all exuded a sacred and majestic aura. These were the statues of the Yun family's ancestors and the human race's ancestors, and they were for the disciples of Cloud Spirit Palace to worship and remember. At this moment, there were a few young disciples in embroidered clothes practicing martial arts on the huge square. These young disciples were only around 20 years old, and they were the disciples of the Yun family's side branch, so they had ordinary statuses. However, their abilities were all above the 7th level of the mystic enlightening realm. If they were placed in the various sects of the 9 regions of the southern land, they would be the elite disciples of their respective sections. When the spirit crane flew over from the sea of clouds and landed on the square, the young disciples immediately stopped their attacks and turned to look at the spirit crane. When they saw Yun Yao jump down from the spirit crane's back, the young disciples immediately cupped their fists and bowed to Yun Yao respectfully. Greetings, eldest young mistress. Eldest young mistress is back. Greetings, eldest young mistress. Yun Yao glanced at the crowd and ignored them. She kept the spirit crane in her jade pendant, then stepped onto the green jade steps and walked towards the entrance of the main hall. The 200 guards on both sides of the steps immediately knelt on one knee and bowed in unison. Greetings, eldest young mistress. After Yun Yao stepped through the main door of the palace and entered Cloud's Spirit Palace, she passed through many corridors and halls and rushed towards Nebula Hall. Nebula Hall was an important place in Cloud's Spirit Palace. It was the place where the Yun family's direct disciples cultivated in seclusion and treated their injuries. On the first floor of the palace, there were a large number of cultivation technique manuals and formation diagrams, as well as many historical books and biographies. On the second floor of the treasury, there were various precious elixirs and materials for refining elixirs and weapons. On the third floor of Nebula Hall, there were only 4 secret rooms used for seclusion and cultivation. These 4 secret rooms were made with top-grade materials and contained an alternate dimension, which was equivalent to a cave abode. Every cave abode had extremely dense heaven and earth spirit energy, and it was set up with a formation that surpassed the heaven origin level. It had extremely powerful effects. No matter if one cultivated in seclusion in the cave abode or circulated their cultivation technique to treat their injuries, they would get twice the results with half the effort. Of course, only the few dozen direct disciples of the Yun family had the right to use these 4 secret rooms. On the way to Nebula Hall, there were naturally countless maidservants and guards who bowed to Yun Yao when they saw her. Yun Yao did not stop. After hurrying to Nebula Hall, she directly went to the 3rd floor. She chose a secret room called Tranquil Sky and placed Ji Tianxing in the secret room. The formation set up in this secret room had the powerful effect of nourishing the soul and strengthening the soul. It was most beneficial for treating Ji Tianxing's injuries. Within Tranquil Sky was a piece of land with a radius of 100 miles. There was a lake, a large river that was like a jade belt, and a mountain that was thousands of feet tall with lush trees and abundant spirit energy. Halfway up the mountain, there was a 1,000-meter tall silver waterfall that flowed down. Chapter 476. The mountain was filled with spirit energy, and it was quiet and peaceful. It was truly a peaceful and undisturbed scenic spot. After Yun Yao entered Tranquil Sky, she walked into a wooden hut at the peak of the mountain. The wooden hut was made of light brown requiem wood. It looked simple and mysterious, but it also had a unique charm. There was a large array set up in the wooden hut that constantly stimulated the power of the requiem wood, emitting invisible soul power fluctuations. Living in this wooden hut, one's soul power would increase rapidly, and one's injured soul would also be comforted and healed. The interior of the wooden hut was very simple. There was only a desk, a chair, and a wooden cabinet for storing books and herbs. Yun Yao took out a jade box from her spatial ring and placed it in the wooden hut. Then, she waved her hand and used a secret technique, injecting majestic true essence into the jade box. The jade box immediately expanded to 3 meters long and quickly expanded, returning to the form of an icy jade bed. Ji Tianxing was still lying peacefully on the jade bed, surrounded by wisps of icy mist. Yun Yao checked his injuries and was finally relieved when she found that his soul power was very stable. She opened the wooden cabinet and searched for herbs to nourish the soul, as well as books related to healing soul injuries. Although she did not have the corresponding strength to treat Ji Tianxing's injuries, she still had to do her best. However, she had to do everything she could to help Ji Tianxing strengthen his soul power with some simple method. Soon, Yun Yao found 2 soul-nourishing pills and fed them to Ji Tianxing. Then, she tried to activate a requiem array in the wooden hut. Just as she finished doing this, a gentle female voice came from the small courtyard outside the wooden hut. "Yao Yao, mother heard from the maidservants that you're back. Are you inside?" Hearing this familiar voice, Yun Yao was stunned. "Mother, how did you find me so quickly?" She muttered in her heart and walked out of the wooden hut with a bit of apprehension. She saw a graceful woman in a long brocade dress standing in the small courtyard outside the door. This woman, who seemed to be in her 30s, was Yun Yao's mother, Bailey Ningsu. She wore a long silver dress embroidered with flowers and a shawl with moon and stars stripes. His long black hair that reached his waist hung down like a waterfall behind his back, quiet and tame. She used a jade hairpin to tie her hair into a bun, wore a golden crown studded with gems, a light blue peacock pattern belt around her waist, and wore a pair of exquisite green jade white orchid shoes on her feet. With such an exquisite and luxurious outfit, her entire body was filled with a noble aura that made people look up to her. Moreover, Bailey Ningsu's figure was tall and slender, her face was beautiful, and her temperament was gentle and virtuous. At first glance, her figure and appearance were almost identical to Yun Yao's. When the two of them stood together, they looked like a pair of twin sisters. However, both mother and daughter had different temperaments. One was as cold as ice, while the other was as gentle as an orchid. They each had their own merit. Yun Yao walked to the center of the courtyard and came in front of Bailey Ningsu. She bowed and said, "Mother, why have you come personally?" Bailey Ningsu revealed a gentle smile and said in a gentle tone, "I heard from the maidservants that you've returned. Mother waited for a while, but you didn't come to greet me. I heard from the guards that you came straight to Nebula Hall after returning to Cloud Spirit Palace." As she said this, Bailey Ningsu reached out and stroked Yun Yao's hair and bangs. Her face was full of love as she said, "You little girl, you rushed back from the heavenly stellar region. You didn't even rest before coming to Nebula Hall. Mother was worried that something might have happened to you, so I rushed over to take a look. Mother, I'm fine." Yun Yao's heart was slightly warm as she slightly lowered her head. Originally, she was still a little apprehensive and hesitant about when to tell her mother about Ji Tianxing. Seeing that her mother was still as gentle and caring as before, she gathered her courage and said, "Mother, since you've come to Tranquil Sky, I have something I need your help with." Bailey Ningsu shook her head and said with a smile, "Yao Yao, if you have any problems, Mother will naturally help you solve them. Why talk about helping or not helping? And Mother loves me the most." Yun Yao nodded and revealed a faint smile. Bailey Ningsu smiled and said in a gentle voice, "Yao Yao, if you have any problems, just tell Mother directly." She held Bailey Ningsu's arm and lightly walked into the wooden house. As she walked, she said, "Mother, a month ago, the Sky Pillar sect encountered a great calamity. The demon race secretly plotted against the Sky Pillar sect. The four great sects of the heavenly stellar region also besieged the Sky Pillar sect, causing the Sky Pillar sect's spirit vein and sealing formation to be broken. The demon emperor from 1,000 years ago also broke through the seal and escaped. He started a massacre in the Sky Pillar sect. That battle was very tragic. The Sky Pillar sect suffered disastrous losses, and almost half of it was destroyed. However, my junior martial brother, Ji Tianxing, bravely stepped forward at the time of danger. He led our sect's disciples to block the demon emperor and heavily injured him before he fled. However, junior martial brother Tianxing was heavily injured in the battle with the demon emperor. His physical body has already died, leaving only a trace of his soul that hasn't been extinguished." When Bailey Ningsu heard this, she understood Yun Yao's meaning. She stopped and tilted her head to look at Yun Yao, a strange light faintly appearing in her eyes. "Yao Yao, you mean you want Mother to save your junior martial brother Tianxing?" Yun Yao quickly nodded and looked at Bailey Ningsu with a serious expression. Her eyes were full of hope and expectation. "Mother, my grandfather is the world-famous divine Dr. Bailey. You inherited my grandfather's medical skills and are now the Central State's famous divine Dr. Su Shou. With your strength and medical skills, you will definitely be able to cure junior martial brother Tianxing. Junior martial brother Tianxing is only 17 years old and has such outstanding talent in martial arts. He also has willpower and responsibility that far surpasses ordinary people. He is truly a good man that is hard to come by. Bailey Ning Su stared at Yun Yao and saw the urgency and worry in her eyes. She couldn't help but wave her hand and interrupt Yun Yao. Yao Yao, mother knows your temperament the best. You have always been cold, aloof, and unapproachable. No matter how handsome and outstanding a man is, he can't enter your eyes. But now, you have such an evaluation of this Ji Tianqing and are so eager to return to Cloud Spirit Palace and ask mother to save him. Speaking up to here, Bailey Ning Su paused. She restrained her smile and looked at Yun Yao with a serious expression. She asked in a solemn tone, Yao Yao, tell mother, do you like him? Yun Yao froze and didn't know how to answer. Although her expression didn't change, her eyes were somewhat evasive. Her sparkling and cute earlobes were faintly red. When Bailey Ning Su saw her reaction, how could she not understand her thoughts? Sigh. You don't need to say anything. Mother already knows. Bailey Ning Su waved her hand and couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 477. Bailey Ning Su's mood was a bit complicated. She remained silent and didn't reply. When Yun Yao was young, she left Cloud Spirit Palace and went to Tianqin region. She hadn't returned for many years. Now that Tianqin region had undergone a drastic change and Sky Pillar sect was in trouble, Yun Yao had finally returned. But as soon as she returned, she brought back a man she liked and couldn't wait to arrange for him to enter Tranquil Sky. This scene had long been seen by the maids, guards, and many people in Cloud Spirit Palace. Bailey Ning Su didn't know if those maids and guards knew about the existence of Ji Tianqing. But she couldn't help but worry that if this news were to leak out, it would bring a lot of criticism and slander to Yun Yao. At this time, Yun Yao saw that her mother was expressionless and silently muttered, Mother, no matter what, you should go in and take a look first. He suffered such heavy injuries in order to save the sect and Tianqin region. You are a kind-hearted godly doctor. You won't sit by and do nothing, right? Bailey Ning Su only nodded and didn't say anything. After entering the wooden house, her gaze fell on the frost jade bed and sized up Ji Tianqing, who was sleeping peacefully. When she saw that Ji Tianqing was only 17 or 18 years old, her eyes couldn't help but flash with a hint of astonishment. Other than that, Ji Tianqing's appearance, figure, and temperament were very ordinary in her eyes. There was nothing special about him. Yun Yao stood to the side and saw her mother sizing up Ji Tianqing. She felt an inexplicable sense of nervousness in her heart. She couldn't help but think that her mother's current state of mind and gaze was like a future mother-in-law sizing up her new son-in-law. This made her eyes flash with a hint of shyness. Her feelings became even more complicated. Fortunately, Bailey Ning Su didn't say anything and didn't make any comments about Ji Tianqing. She walked to the side of the frost jade bed and stretched out her slender fingers. She formed a seal and used a secret technique to check on Ji Tianqing's injuries. A hazy white light shrouded Ji Tianqing's body, probing him silently. After about 10 breaths of time, Bailey Ning Su finally stopped and withdrew the white light. Yun Yao had been staring at the changes in her mother's expression. She was quite nervous and worried. Seeing that her mother had finished cultivating, she hurriedly asked, Mother, how are Tianqing's injuries? Can you save him? Bailey Ning Su nodded slightly, her expression calm. Although his injuries are serious, if your father were to personally act, it wouldn't be difficult to save him. It would just be a bit troublesome. Yao Yao, this matter is very important. You have to tell mother about Ji Tianqing's background and how you two met. Seeing that her mother did not reject her outright, Yun Yao felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from her heart. She hurriedly said, half a year ago, as the head disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, I went to the Azure Sky Kingdom in the Tianqin region to supervise the recruitment of disciples. On my way to the Azure Sky Imperial City, I happened to see Tianqing being chased by assassins and saved him. At that time, he was the #1 genius of the Azure Sky Kingdom, but because of some reason, He fell back to the body refinement realm. Yun Yao recalled the past and truthfully told Bailey Ningsu about the things that happened between her and Ji Tianxing in the past half a year. Of course, the things she said were all for the sake of Ji Tianxing. Through one incident after another, she constantly praised Ji Tianxing's outstanding talent, firm will, calm and wise, righteous, brave and responsible, and so on. In short, deep in her heart, she firmly believed that Ji Tianxing was the most outstanding and special person. Bailey Ningsu listened with a calm expression and occasionally asked a question or two. Half an hour later, when Yun Yao finished talking about her and Ji Tianxing, Bailey Ningsu silently weighed the pros and cons. She walked to the window and indifferently looked at the scenery outside. After a moment of consideration, Bailey Ningsu calmly said, Yao Yao, although the Sky Pillar sect is the #1 sect in the Tianxin region, it can't be compared to the Cloud Soul Palace. Back then, if you weren't young and stubborn and insisted on leaving the Central State, father and mother wouldn't have agreed to let you leave the Cloud Soul Palace. Even if we let you go to the Tianxin region, it was only to train your temperament and let you wander the outside world to understand the dangers and hardships of the world. Since you've already returned, there's no need to return to the Sky Pillar sect. The survival of the Sky Pillar sect is insignificant to our Cloud Soul Palace. It's not worth mentioning. As for the Demon Emperor that was sealed 1,000 years ago, although it's an extremely troublesome demon, it's not up to our Cloud Soul Palace to interfere. The Imperial Court will naturally take care of it. Yun Yao slightly frowned and asked, Mother, whether I should stay in the Cloud Soul Palace, and when I'll return to the Sky Pillar sect. We'll talk about this later. Right now, I just want to ask you to help treat Tianxing's injuries. Bailey Ningsu still looked out the window and calmly said, Yao Yao, you've already changed. You're no longer as calm and wise as before. You're worried about this youth and only have him in your eyes, so you've lost your sense of propriety and reason. This will be detrimental to your growth in the future. It will also bring you endless troubles and cause a lot of criticism and slander. This young man was considered an outstanding genius in the 9 regions of the southern continent. But in the central state, he's not eye-catching and is extremely ordinary. Moreover, with his background and status, he's destined to never reach the peak of the martial path and match up to your status. Right now, your father is in a critical period of closed-door cultivation. Mother definitely won't disturb your father's cultivation for such an insignificant person. Hearing this, Yun Yao guessed her mother's attitude and immediately became anxious. She repeatedly shook her head and explained to Bailey Ningsu, Mother, it's not what you think. I haven't changed, and I don't care about what others think. You don't understand Tianxing, you don't know what kind of person he is, and you don't know how special he is. Tianxing's heart is filled with lofty aspirations and has extraordinary talent in the martial path. Moreover, he's loyal and righteous, and his character is extraordinary. Whether you believe it or not, I'm certain that Tianxing's future achievements will be limitless and his name will spread throughout the world. Mother, your medical skills are extraordinary. I believe that even if Father doesn't personally come, you'll definitely have a way to save Tianxing. Bailey Ningsu glanced at her and said calmly, Yao Yao, you're too excited and blindly confident. This youth was able to force back the Demon Emperor, which is truly impressive. To the Tianxin region and the Imperial Court, he's a meritorious subject and should be rewarded, but that's all. He didn't manage to kill the Demon Emperor and ended up heavily injured. He even put himself in a desperate situation. This shows that he doesn't have enough strength. To deal with the Demon Emperor and eradicate the demon race, we'll have to rely on the Imperial Court's strength. Moreover, you'll become a heavenly concubine next year. Since you've returned to Cloud Spirit Palace, you should pay attention to your words and image to avoid attracting criticism. In the future, don't get too close to these ordinary people. Otherwise, if the Imperial Court finds out, it'll make the Emperor and Empress unhappy. At this moment, Bailey Ningsu's tone was serious and her expression contained a trace of dignity. Yun Yao stared at her mother in a daze. Her emotions became very complicated and her eyes revealed a trace of disbelief. Chapter 478. After staring blankly for a moment, Yun Yao came back to her senses. She stared at Bailey Ningsu and shook her head in disbelief. Mother, you want me to be a heavenly consort? Didn't you tell me that you wouldn't force me to do anything I didn't want to do, and that you wouldn't force me to be a heavenly consort? Bailey Ningsu's expression didn't change. She said earnestly, Yao Yao, a mother knows her daughter best. I know your nature the best. If I didn't tell you that, how could you come back so quickly? Yun Yao was speechless. Her heart was filled with disappointment. Bailey Ningsu continued, Yao Yao, you haven't been in Cloud Soul Palace all these years, so you don't know the situation of the Yun family. Our Cloud Soul Palace is an ancient family and seems to be above the world. But in reality, the talents of the Yun family have withered in the past 100 years, and their power has been declining. The other two families have been eyeing our Yun family covetously. In recent years, they've been scheming and plotting against us. In recent years, if it weren't for the Son of Heaven secretly helping our Yun family, the other two families would have been even more arrogant and despotic. They would have attacked us a long time ago. The Son of Heaven has a noble status and is the #1 genius of the human race. He's also infatuated with you. Such a perfect match, who else could it be but him? Yao Yao, I'm not forcing you to be a heavenly consort to strengthen the Yun family. I'm just thinking for your future. I hope you can find a better home so that you can live a peaceful and happy life. Bailey Ningsu was the divine doctor's daughter and the current mistress of the Yun family. How noble was her status! She naturally wasn't someone who fawned over others. She wouldn't sacrifice her daughter's happiness for the sake of strengthening the Yun family. She just wanted Yun Yao to have a more perfect and reliable home. Compared to the Son of Heaven, who had a noble status and outstanding talent, Ji Tianxing was just a nobody. He was just an ordinary person. If it were any other parent, they would have made the same choice as her. Yun Yao's eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and she shook her head repeatedly. Mother, no matter what, I will never become a heavenly concubine. If he didn't love her, he didn't love her. This had nothing to do with the Son of Heaven's status and talent. Please forgive your daughter. I can't go against my heart for the sake of the bigger picture. Bailey Ningsu knew Yun Yao's nature very well, so she wasn't surprised by what she said. She sighed with a heavy heart and said calmly, Yao Yao, we can temporarily put aside the matter of you being a heavenly concubine. However, you can never return to the Sky Pillar sect in the future. Seeing Yun Yao's tearful face, Bailey Ningsu continued, after the Sky Pillar sect suffered a great calamity, it's already in ruins and is in imminent danger. Perhaps after the Demon Emperor recovered his strength, he would make a comeback and go to the Sky Pillar sect to take revenge. Mother absolutely won't allow you to go back to the Sky Bearing sect and take risk. You also have to give up on this idea. Even if you stay in the Sky Pillar sect, it will be difficult for you to grow and improve in the future. In this lifetime, you will never be able to break through the limits of the Celestial Being realm and surpass the Sky Origin realm. Compared to the Sky Pillar sect, the Monarch Mansion is where you should go. Only the top geniuses can enter the Monarch Mansion and study the more exquisite martial arts there. Only in the Monarch Mansion will you have the chance to surpass the Sky Origin realm and become a Transcendent Spirit Refinement realm expert. The Monarch Mansion mentioned by Bailey Ningsu was one of the most mysterious and powerful forces in the Central State. The Monarch Mansion had thousands of years of inheritance and history. Its strength was incomparably powerful and unfathomable. No matter what happened in the Central State in these thousands of years, no matter how the situation changed, the Monarch Mansion had always stood tall. Regardless of the Southern Human Imperial Court, the Western Demonic Imperial Court, or the Eastern Water Imperial Court, none of them dared to become enemies with the monarch mansion. Of course, this was because the monarch mansion was too mysterious and powerful. It stood above the various forces and was unparalleled. However, there was another important reason. The monarch mansion was the top institution in the central state and even the entire Tianxian continent. It was also the sacred martial arts ground in the hearts of countless geniuses. Regardless of the race, as long as one had extraordinary talent and martial arts aptitude, they would have the chance to enter the monarch mansion and study the profound martial arts. For thousands of years, the monarch mansion had cultivated countless transcendent spirit refinement realm experts. These transcendent spirit refinement realm experts came from different races and had become influential figures in the Tianxian continent. Therefore, all the races were extremely respectful to the monarch mansion and did not dare to offend them. And those geniuses who could enter the monarch mansion to further their studies also had lofty statuses. They were highly regarded and favored by all the major forces. The disciples of all the major races, major forces, and aristocratic families in the central state all strived to enter the monarch mansion. However, when Yun Yao heard the words monarch mansion, she did not have the slightest yearning or expectation. Instead, she revealed a trace of resistance. She had never thought of entering the monarch mansion and had always resisted it. She only wanted to save Ji Tianxing and was worried about the sky-bearing sect. It was impossible for her to enter the monarch mansion to study. "Mother, you know that I have already said that I don't want to enter," Yun Yao refused with a firm tone. However, she was interrupted by Bailey Ningsu before she could finish her sentence. Bailey Ningsu looked at her with a serious expression and gently shook her head. She said with a gentle but firm tone, "Yao Yao, this is the decision that your father and mother have made together. It cannot be changed. Mother has already arranged everything for you. After a while, Mother will send you to the monarch mansion to study. You should also take this time to rest and prepare." Seeing that Yun Yao was unwilling to relent, Bailey Ningsu added, "Yao Yao, father and mother are doing this for your own good. No matter how unwilling you are, you will understand our good intentions in the future." After saying that, Bailey Ningsu turned to leave. Yun Yao hurriedly chased after her and grabbed her arm. She begged with a face full of worry, "Mother, daughter is begging you. Please save Tianxing." Bailey Ningsu stopped and turned to look at her. She said earnestly, "Yao Yao, Mother has already made it very clear to you. This child is not related to Cloud Soul Palace. If I save him, it will definitely cause criticism and affect the relationship between Cloud Soul Palace and the Imperial Court. How can Mother save him?" Yun Yao was unwilling to give up. She asked, "Mother, are you really not going to save him?" Bailey Ningsu saw that her daughter was so stubborn and sad. She couldn't bear it. However, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She calmly explained, "Yao Yao, it's not that Mother doesn't want to save him. It's just that Mother is powerless. Although Mother has miraculous medical skills, I'm only at the heaven origin realm. I haven't reached the soul refinement realm. Your father is a transcendent realm expert. If he were to help, he would definitely be able to save that youth." Chapter 479. Bailey Ningsu had already made her stance very clear, and Yun Yao's last bit of hope was instantly shattered. Tears fell uncontrollably from her big, clear eyes. Her lips moved several times, wanting to beg her mother again, but she couldn't say anything. Bailey Ningsu suppressed the pain in her heart and expressionlessly said, "Yao Yao, you're already very tired. You should go back and rest. As for that youth, if you want him to recuperate here, then let him stay here. Cloud Soul Palace won't save him, but they also won't drive him out so heartlessly. Tranquil Sky is suitable for resting souls and recuperating, so it's also good for him to stay here. As for whether he can wake up or not, that will depend on his own luck." After saying this, Bailey Ningsu walked out of the wooden house and left without looking back. Yun Yao stood at the door in a daze, watching her mother's figure disappear into the distance. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and her heart was filled with sorrow and helplessness. She originally thought that as long as she brought Ji Tianqing back to Cloud Soul Palace, there would definitely be a way to cure Ji Tianqing. Her mother had always been gentle and virtuous, and loved her dearly. Her father was also kind and dignified, treating her as the apple of his eye and never saying a harsh word to her. Yun Yao thought that her parents would empathize with her and treat Ji Tianqing for her sake. She didn't expect that the end result would be like this. The hope that had risen in her heart with great difficulty was shattered just like that. However, her mother's reaction was also within her expectations. Even if her mother made this decision, she had nothing to complain about. She only hated that she wasn't strong enough and couldn't think of a better way for the time being. In Tianqing's most helpless moment, she could only watch helplessly. She could not do anything about it. After standing in silence for a while, Yun Yao raised her sleeve to wipe away the tears in her eyes and turned to walk back into the house. She walked to the ice jade bed and stared at the sleeping Ji Tianqing. She whispered in a firm tone, "Tianqing, don't worry, I won't give up. No matter what, I will think of a way to save you. I will definitely wake you up as soon as possible. Definitely." Yun Yao quickly calmed down and began to think of all kinds of ways. Even if her parents could not save Ji Tianqing, she would do her best to help Ji Tianqing heal his soul. She prayed silently in her heart. Tianqing's luck was long and he was gifted. Perhaps there would be a miracle? In the dark and cold Kenshin tomb, under the pitch-black and ice-cold heavenly sword steel, a ball of spiritual energy wrapped around Ji Tianqing's soul and attached itself to the sword steel. At this time, the originally quiet white soul mist surged for a while and condensed into a palm-sized white person. It was Ji Tianqing. He had heard the conversation between Yun Yao and Bailey Ningsu clearly. Recalling Yun Yao's words, his expression was a little complicated. He muttered to himself in a low voice, "Eldest senior sister, I've wronged you. In the past, our hearts were connected, but we never said it to each other face to face. We hid our feelings in the bottom of our hearts. If I wasn't seriously injured and unconscious and my soul separated, I wouldn't have known that your feelings for me were so deep. You treat me like this, I, Ji Tianqing, will not let you down in this life." Ji Tianqing's expression was incomparably firm and solemn. In the next 3 days, Yun Yao was busy without sleep or rest. She had to give Ji Tianqing 2 soul-nurturing pills every day to nourish his soul. In addition, she also flipped through the books stored in several wooden houses, looking for a way to save Ji Tianqing. On the evening of the 3rd day, she finally found a clue in an old, yellowed medical book that had many notes written on it. It was clearly written in the book that there was a sacred item called Nirvana Crystal that could strengthen the soul of a separated person and let the soul return to its original place. Ji Tianqing's current condition was that his soul was separated from his body. His soul was severely injured, and his strength was weak. A normal person's soul was like a torch that burned fiercely until the day it burned out, and they would die. However, Ji Tianqing's soul was like a candle. The flame was weak, and would not be able to hold on for long before it was extinguished. When Yun Yao saw this, her eyes flashed with a bright light, and a strong sense of hope gushed out. She hurriedly continued reading, wanting to know what the Nirvana Crystal was and where she could get it. It was written in the book that the Nirvana Crystal, a sacred item, was said to be a treasure left behind by the divine beast Phoenix when it was reborn. According to the legends, the divine beast Phoenix was immortal and indestructible. It could continuously undergo nirvanic rebirth. The Nirvana crystal produced by the Phoenix when it was reborn contained a supreme and mysterious power. That power could allow a separated person to be reborn like a phoenix and wake up again. What made Yun Yao the most excited and invigorated was that the Nirvana crystal had appeared in the central state 200 years ago. There were a total of 2 Nirvana crystals, and they came from the Phoenix and the Phoenix respectively. They were a perfect pair. When those 2 Nirvana crystals appeared in the central state, It had once caused various powerhouses to fight over them, and various major powers fought for them. But in the end, that pair of nirvana crystals passed through several people's hands and landed in the hands of divine Dr. Bailey. From then on, that pair of nirvana crystals never appeared again. Regarding the news of the nirvana crystal, the medical book only wrote until here and did not continue. Yun Yao closed the medical book, and her charming face revealed a strong sense of hope as her eyes surged with a bright light. That's great! I finally found a way to save Tianxing. Divine Dr. Bailey is my grandfather, and the nirvana crystal is actually with him. After a moment, her agitated emotions calmed down and she frowned again. But grandfather has already disappeared for many years. How am I going to find the nirvana crystal? Yun Yao frowned and pondered for a while before getting up and walking out of the wooden house. She prepared to leave Tranquil Sky and ask the elders in her family about this matter. Walking to the small courtyard outside the wooden house, she activated Tranquil Sky's teleportation array. Swoosh! A white light flashed, and Yun Yao left Tranquil Sky and returned to the corridor on the third floor of Nebula Hall. Just as she was about to leave, a clear male voice came from behind her. "Cousin Yao Yao, you're finally out." That was the voice of a young man, and his tone was filled with intimacy and joy. It was obvious that he was excited about Yun Yao's appearance. When Yun Yao heard this familiar voice, she stopped in her tracks and turned to look behind her. She saw a handsome young man in a blue brocade robe walking towards her with a smile on his face. That young man was about 30 years old, and he was tall and slender. His face was handsome and fair, and he was even holding an exquisite purple jade folding fan in his hand. This person's figure and appearance were excellent, and when he smiled, he made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze, and they would never feel disgusted. This gentle and elegant noble young master was Yun Yao's cousin, Zhu Fifan. Zhu Fifan's mother was Bailey Ningsu's biological sister, so he called Bailey Ningsu his aunt. When Zhu Fifan was very young, his parents both died. Bailey Ningsu saw that he was young and lonely, so she brought him to live in Cloud Soul Palace. All these years, Zhu Fifan had been living in Cloud Soul Palace, and the servants of the Yun family respectfully called him Young Master Biao. Zhu Fifan inherited his mother's talent and ambition. All these years, he had been diligently studying the art of medicine, and he already had the attainments of a grandmaster. However, his talent and attainments in the art of poison far exceeded that of medicine. He was not a common grandmaster of the art of medicine, but a grandmaster of the art of poison that made people tremble in fear. Since Yun Yao was very young, Zhu Fifan had been caring and protective of her. Chapter 480. Yun Yao had a cold temperament and didn't want to waste time with Zhu Fifan. But Zhu Fifan was her cousin and deeply loved by her mother, Bailey Ningsu. Zhu Fifan greeted her with a heart full of joy, so she couldn't ignore Zhu Fifan like she ignored the maidservants and guards. Yun Yao nodded lightly to Zhu Fifan as a greeting, and she said calmly, "Cousin, you're looking for me?" Zhu Fifan came before her and sized her up with a gentle gaze, and he said with a smile, "Yao Yao, I haven't seen you for a few years. I didn't expect you to become more beautiful like a fairy. I heard you came back 2 days ago, but I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you for many years, and I miss you very much, so I came to see you and greet you." Zhu Fifan's words were full of intimacy, and his expression and tone were very natural. Even if he hadn't seen Yun Yao for many years, he didn't feel the slightest unfamiliarity or awkwardness. Yun Yao nodded lightly and said calmly, "Cousin, I still have something to deal with, so I won't accompany you." After she finished speaking, she turned around and was about to leave. But Zhu Fifan followed closely and asked with a concerned expression, "Yao Yao, I see your complexion isn't good, and your spirit is tired. Did something happen? You've been in Tranquil Sky these few days and didn't come out to see anyone. Could it be that you're in closed-door cultivation to heal your injuries?" When he saw Yun Yao frowning slightly and seemed to be thinking about something, Zhu Fifan continued, Yao Yao, if you have any difficulties, just tell me, and I'll surely go through fire and water for you. Yun Yao stopped and glanced at him, and she thought to herself, cousin only has the strength of the 5th level of the origin core stage, and he's only skilled in the art of poison, but he can't help. But he's always been by mother's side all these years, so he might know something about the Nirvana Divine Crystal. When she thought up to here, she stared at Zhu Fifan and asked in a serious tone, cousin, I have something to ask you. Zhu Fifan saw that she wasn't as cold as before and actually had something to ask of him, so he said with a smile, cousin, feel free to ask, I'll tell you everything I know. Yun Yao lowered her voice and asked in a low voice, have you heard of the Nirvana Divine Crystal? Zhu Fifan was instantly stunned, and the smile on his handsome face. He glanced to the left and right, and when he saw there was no one in the corridor, he replied with a question. I've naturally heard of divine treasures like the Nirvana Divine Crystal. Furthermore, that pair of Nirvana Crystal was obtained by our grandfather, Divine Dr. Bailey. This matter is not too important a secret. She asked Zhu Fifan, cousin, do you know where the Nirvana Divine Crystal is now? To know where it? Yeah. Fifan T wonder puzzant to ask him to s2's int to asks to himself. To ask iuis. Her. Into to ningsu it and, of course. Zhu Fifan glanced at her playfully and said in a strange tone, cousin Yao Yao, you are looking for a donkey while riding a donkey. Don't you know that the Nirvana Divine Crystal has always been in your body? Yun Yao's expression changed. She looked at him in confusion. What? Why is the Nirvana Divine Crystal in my body? Why don't I know about it? Zhu Fifan shook his head with a chuckle and sighed. Ah, it seems that your aunt didn't tell you about it. When your aunt married into the Cloud Spirit Palace, your grandfather gave her the Nirvana Divine Crystal as her dowry and asked her to bring it to the Cloud Spirit Palace. When you were born, your body couldn't bear the bloodline of the Celestial Spirit Sacred Body, so your body died. You were a dead baby when you were born. Your body died, and only a trace of your soul was left. Your aunt and your husband were very sad at that time, and they were very busy. Later, your aunt took out a Nirvana Divine Crystal and put it in your body. Your husband used his power to help you recuperate for 7 days. Then, you came back to life. After hearing Zhu Fifan's words, Yun Yao's expression changed. Her eyes were full of shock and confusion. I was a dead baby when I was born? How could there be such a thing? Why didn't I know about it? Why didn't anyone mention it to me? Zhu Fifan shook his head and said with emotion, at that time, the Cloud Spirit Palace was in chaos for a few days. The atmosphere was very depressing, and there were many rumors. Someone in the mansion secretly spread the rumor that you were an unlucky person who would bring disaster to the Cloud Spirit Palace. Your husband was furious and ordered that no one should talk about it. Otherwise, you would be severely punished. Since then, no one in the mansion dared to mention it. Your aunt and your husband loved you so much. Of course, they wouldn't tell you about it so as not to affect your mood. So, it's normal that you don't know about it. Yun Yao nodded slightly. She finally understood the whole story. She was stunned. She looked at Zhu Fifan and asked, cousin, how do you know about it so well? Zhu Fifan couldn't help laughing. He quickly explained, cousin, have you forgotten that when you were born, I had already entered the Cloud Spirit Palace, and I was already 6 years old? Over the years, I accompanied my aunt and helped her manage the mansion's affairs. When she was free, she often talked about the past with me. She was very worried about you. Seeing that Zhu Fifan was going to continue, Yun Yao quickly waved her hand and interrupted him. Okay, cousin, I'll ask you one last question. Since there is a pair of Nirvana Divine Crystals, and one is in my body, the other one must be with my mother, right? Do you know where my mother usually hides the precious treasures? Zhu Fifan vaguely guessed something, but he didn't show it on his face and pretended that he didn't know anything. He pretended to think for a moment, and then said with uncertainty, "According to my understanding of my aunt, if she has any precious treasures, she will put them in the secret chamber in the bedroom." "Okay, thank you, cousin." Yun Yao was secretly happy. She thanked Zhu Fifan and quickly left. Zhu Fifan stood in the corridor and looked at her leaving figure. He frowned slightly, and a trace of doubt flashed in his heart. Cousin already has one Nirvana Divine Crystal in her body. Why did she ask about the other one? Could it be that she didn't use it for herself, but to help others? Thinking of this, Zhu Fifan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. After Yun Yao left the Nebula Palace, she went straight to Bailey Ningsu's residence and rushed to the Thousand Cloud Palace. Since Bailey Ningsu was unwilling to save Ji Tianxing, she could only use the Nirvana Divine Crystal to wake Ji Tianxing up. One of the Nirvana Divine Crystals was in her body, and the other one was most likely hidden in the secret chamber in Bailey Ningsu's bedroom. After hearing this, Yun Yao had a bold idea in her heart. Although the idea was somewhat disobedient, it would also damage her reputation and bring a lot of rumors and criticism. However, as long as she could save Ji Tianxing, she didn't care about anything. Chapter 481. The Thousand Cloud Palace was extremely luxurious and vast. It had 3 floors. Among them, there were nearly 200 maids and guards. When Yun Yao entered the Thousand Cloud Palace, the sky was already dark. Night was about to fall. Many clever and obedient maids were lighting the lanterns in the Thousand Cloud Palace. While the maids were not paying attention, Yun Yao stealthily passed through the corridors and stairs and ascended to the 3rd floor. Relying on her memories from a few years ago, she stealthily found her way to Bailey Ningsu's bedroom and entered an exquisite and elegant room. Bailey Ningsu was not in the room. There were only 2 young maids in the room. The 2 maids were only in the mystic comprehending realm. Yun Yao used a small trick to knock them out. She did not have time to deal with the 2 unconscious maids. She hurriedly searched the spacious room. If I remember correctly, Mother would personally inspect the pill room at this time every day. It would take about an hour. I only have an hour. I have to find the Nirvana Divine Crystal as soon as possible. Yun Yao silently pondered. Her hands moved faster and faster. She was clearly flustered and anxious. In order to save time, she rummaged through the cabinets and chests. She did not have time to put the scattered items back to their original positions. In a short half an hour, she had searched the entire room. The room was in a mess, but she did not find the Nirvana Divine Crystal. Thus, Yun Yao lifted the curtain behind the golden bed and found the door to the secret room. She relied on her memories and her own attainments in array formations. It only took her half an hour to open the array formation of the secret room's door. Then, she entered Bailey Ningsu's secret cultivation room and rummaged through it. Bailey Ningsu's secret cultivation room was naturally one of the best secret rooms in Cloud Spirit Palace. It was even more effective than Tranquil Sky. After entering the secret room, Yun Yao entered an alternate space and arrived in a starry sky. In the cold and gloomy starry sky, specks of stars twinkled with silver light. The astral winds in the starry sky were biting cold. Other than a silver altar-like array formation, there was nothing else. Yun Yao searched around the array formation twice and found that there were many array formations hidden in the starry sky, hiding many things. However, she tried her best to decipher a few arrays, but all she found were a few books on alchemy and some rare herb. Very quickly, an hour passed. Yun Yao anxiously cracked the array formation and constantly found some elixirs, pill furnaces, weapons, and so on. However, she still couldn't find the Nirvana Divine Crystal. When she broke the formation again and found a sword in the starry sky, her heart was filled with disappointment. When she came back to her senses, she realized that the 1-hour deadline had passed. "It's over. I have to leave immediately, or else Mother will find out." Yun Yao cursed in her heart and quickly left the dark starry sky. When she left the secret room and returned to Bailey Ningsu's sleeping quarters, her figure appeared beside the golden lawn bed. Just as she was about to reach out and pull the curtain to cover the door of the secret room, she suddenly heard a cold shout. "Yao Yao, what are you doing?" Suddenly hearing this familiar voice, Yun Yao's body stiffened and her face turned pale. There was no doubt that Bailey Ningsu had returned to her sleeping quarters and caught her red-handed. She let go of the curtain and slowly turned around to see Bailey Ningsu standing in the middle of the room, angrily glaring at her. "Mother," Yun Yao moved her lips with difficulty and wanted to explain something, but she found that she couldn't. Bailey Ningsu pointed at the messy room, as well as the two young maids who were still unconscious on the floor, her voice low as she asked. "Yao Yao, you sneaked into Mother's sleeping quarters, knocked out the maids, and even turned the cabinets upside down to look for something. What kind of scandal is this? You've always been quiet, obedient, smart, and sensible since you were young. You've never done such a ridiculous thing. If Mother didn't see it with her own eyes, Mother wouldn't believe that such an outrageous thing was done by you. Speak. What are you looking for?" Bailey Ningsu had always been gentle and virtuous. She had a calm and gentle temperament and was recognized as a good wife and mother. This was the first time Yun Yao had seen her mother so angry and reprimanded her in such a tone. However, before she sneaked into the Thousand Cloud Palace, she had already prepared for the worst. Since the matter had already been exposed and she had been caught red-handed by her mother, she might as well not hide it anymore. She pursed her lips and looked at Bailey Ningsu with a firm gaze. "Mother, I heard that there is a sacred item called the Nirvana Crystal that can heal the injuries of people whose bodies and souls have been separated. When I was born, I was a dead baby. You used the Nirvana Crystal to save me and bring me back to life. So, I want to find that Nirvana Crystal to save Tianqing." Hearing these words, Bailey Ningsu's expression changed and she angrily shouted, "Yao Yao! Have you lost your mind? The Nirvana Crystal is not only a sacred item that is hard to come by in 1,000 years, it is also a dowry that your grandfather gave to Mother. It is also one of the most precious treasures of Cloud Soul Palace. You actually want to use the Nirvana Crystal to save that young man? You are too preposterous." Bailey Ningsu never thought that Yun Yao, who had always been cold and indifferent, would do something that only a naughty girl would do. Moreover, the Nirvana Crystal was an incomparably precious sacred item, a rare treasure. Other than her closest relatives, she would never give it to anyone else. Even her sister's orphan, Zhu Fifan, who had always been by her side, would not be able to obtain the last piece of Nirvana Crystal. Yun Yao looked at Bailey Ningsu without backing down and said in a low voice, "Mother, before this you kept telling me that you were powerless to save Tianqing, and that you couldn't do anything either. But you clearly still have a piece of Nirvana Crystal in your hands. I know that the Nirvana Crystal is very precious, but it is after all a worldly possession. How can it be compared to a human life?" Bailey Ningsu looked at Yun Yao. Seeing how stubborn she was, she couldn't help but sigh. "Yao Yao, you have already been bewitched by that young man to the point that you have lost your mind. Mother has already said all that needs to be said. Today's matter ends here. Go back and have a good rest. Calm down and reflect." After saying that, Bailey Ningsu turned around and looked elsewhere, no longer looking at Yun Yao. Yun Yao took a deep breath and suppressed the disappointment in her heart. She quickly left the bedroom. She walked out of the Thousand Cloud Palace with an indifferent expression. Her figure passed through the gloomy night and returned to Nebula Palace. After a quarter of an hour, she returned to tranquil sky and entered Ji Tianqing's wooden house. The wooden house was silent and the air was filled with dense soul power. Very quickly, her emotions and soul calmed down. She sat beside the frigid ice jade bed and quietly stared at Ji Tianqing as she sank into deep thought. 4 hours passed and she didn't move an inch. 12 hours passed and she still maintained her original position. An entire day passed. She finally made up her mind. She looked at Ji Tianxing with a determined gaze and muttered in a low voice, "Tianxing, even if my mother doesn't save you, I will. When I was corroded by the devil Qi and almost lost my life, it was you who saved me with your Kenshin bloodline." Chapter 482. Yun Yao finally made up her mind. She wanted to take out the Nirvana Divine Crystal from her body and place it in Ji Tianxing's body to heal him. Although she knew that doing so would likely have some serious consequences, she was still fearless. However, she was fearless and couldn't care less. After that, she took out a few pills and swallowed them. Then, she sat cross-legged beside the ice jade bed and began to recover her strength. 2 days later, she had recovered about 80% of her strength. She continued to search for the Nirvana Divine Crystal in her body. She didn't know about the Nirvana Divine Crystal before and didn't notice the abnormality in her body. Now that she knew about the existence of the Nirvana Divine Crystal, it only took her a few hours to find it. The Nirvana Divine Crystal that Bailey Ningsu placed in her body was hidden in the depths of her mind. She used her spiritual sense to search carefully and saw that it was a diamond-shaped crystal the size of a pigeon's egg and was as red as fire. The Nirvana Divine Crystal quietly floated in her mind, silently guarding her soul. It seemed extremely mysterious and profound. It contained an extremely powerful and mysterious power, but it was very hidden and restrained. If she hadn't used her spiritual sense to search carefully, she wouldn't have noticed it at all after searching for a few hours. Yun Yao used her spiritual sense to enter the depths of her mind and slowly extended it toward the Nirvana Divine Crystal, wrapping it up. This process was very slow and consumed a lot of time and energy. Although Yun Yao was very careful, her spiritual sense was quickly dissipating, and her cultivation was also rapidly depleting. When she wrapped the Nirvana Divine Crystal with her spiritual sense and gently shook it, intense stabbing pain came from the depths of her soul. At that moment, the extreme pain made her soul tremble. Her whole body trembled and broke out in cold sweat. But she gritted her teeth and endured the pain. Bit by bit, she pulled the Nirvana Divine Crystal out of her mind and made it fly to the top of her head. Wave after wave of stabbing pain came to her soul, making her endure unimaginable suffering and pain. Her body trembled, her face was pale, and large beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. She was in so much pain that her whole body convulsed, and her nerves were about to be twisted. This was definitely the most painful and torturous moment in her life. PFFF. Finally, Yun Yao spat out a mouthful of blood and became extremely dispirited. 100 breaths of time later, when the Nirvana Divine Crystal flew out from the top of her head, a large gap seemed to have been cut open in her soul. Yun Yao spat out another mouthful of blood. Her entire body became extremely dispirited, and her eyes dimmed, without any spirit. At this moment, her life aura was extremely weak, and her soul fluctuations had become chaotic and rapidly weakening. She was like an old woman who was about to reach the end of her life. She could already see death approaching. Her consciousness became more and more blurry, and her eyes gradually turned black. She was about to faint. However, Yun Yao clenched her teeth and persevered with the tenacious belief in her heart. "No! I can't faint. I want to save Tianxing, but I haven't done it yet." Yun Yao tried her best not to faint. Pursing her lips, she used her spiritual sense to control the Nirvana Divine Crystal and slowly flew towards Ji Tianxing. Although she was only 2 meters away from Ji Tianxing, normally she would use her spiritual sense to control something to fly 2 meters away, and it would be done in the blink of an eye. But now, a mere 2 meters away was the furthest distance in the world to her. She used the last of her strength to control the Nirvana Divine Crystal and moved it towards Ji Tianxing bit by bit. 100 breaths of time later, the Nirvana Divine Crystal finally drilled into Ji Tianxing's forehead and entered his mind. At that moment, a dark red light flashed across Ji Tianxing's body. His lifeless and cold body actually had a trace of heat. Yun Yao felt that subtle change and knew that she had finally succeeded. Her face, which was as pale as paper and had gradually lost its vitality, squeezed out a faint smile and revealed an expression of relief. Pfff. An unparalleled pain came from the depths of her soul, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood again. All her strength was completely exhausted, leaving not even a drop left. She could no longer support herself and fell to the ground. With a muffled thump, Yun Yao fell to the ground and lost consciousness. At the moment before she fainted, she only had one thought in her mind. Tianxing, you must wake up and live well. Then, endless sleepiness and darkness gushed out from the depths of her soul, completely engulfing her consciousness. Ji Tianxing, who was lying on the ice jade bed, was still as silent as before, as if he didn't know anything about all of this. The only change was that a faint red light lingered around his body, and his body was slowly recovering its temperature. Inside the Thousand Clouds Palace, Bailey Ningsu was sitting in front of a table in her bedchamber, engrossed in reading an ancient book. A young maid came over and gracefully added spices to the incense burner. Bailey Ningsu slightly frowned and put down the ancient book in her hand, sighing softly. Sigh. The maid's body shook, and she hurriedly asked in a gentle voice, "Mistress, are you worried about eldest miss again?" "Yes." Bailey Ningsu nodded. For the past 2 days, she had been frowning, and her heart was filled with worries. After a moment of silence, she faintly said, "I hope that Yao Yao can calm down and reflect for a few days, and understand my good intentions." As soon as her voice fell, a young maid rushed in like a gust of wind from the entrance of the sleeping chamber. The maid's face was filled with fear, and she used all her strength to rush into the bedchamber. She anxiously shouted, "Mistress, something bad has happened. Eldest senior sister's soul lamp is about to extinguish." After the maid breathlessly finished speaking, Bailey Ningsu's body trembled, and her face became extremely ugly. "What?" She stood up with a swish, and her eyes were like lightning as she stared at the maid and shouted, "What happened?" The maid was also filled with fear and did not know what to do. With a sobbing voice, she said, "Mistress, quickly come and take a look." Bailey Ningsu did not have time to think. Her figure flashed out of the bedchamber, and she quickly rushed to the Soul Hall. There was a high platform in the Soul Hall, and it was divided into 6 steps. According to the rules, hundreds of soul lamps were placed on it. The owners of these soul lamps were the direct descendants of the Yun family, and the soul lamps of the upper echelons. Once something happened to someone outside, the soul lamp would change. If the soul lamp extinguished, it meant that the person's soul was destroyed, and they were completely dead. Bailey Ningsu looked at one of the soul lamps on the 3rd row, and saw that the originally bright soul lamp had turned into a weak little flame, and could be extinguished at any time. Seeing this, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her face was as white as paper, and her body trembled a few times. The heavy blow caused her mind to go blank, and she almost fainted on the spot. In the next moment, when Bailey Ningsu regained her senses, she turned and rushed out of the Soul Hall without hesitation, and rushed to the Nebula Hall at the fastest speed in her life. Chapter 483. Swoosh. With a flash of white light, Bailey Ningsu appeared in tranquil sky and landed on the peak of the mountain. Her face was pale, and she anxiously ran through the small courtyard, rushing into the wooden house as fast as lightning. When she entered the wooden house and saw the situation inside, her face turned even uglier. Her heart ached so much that it was about to bleed. She saw Yun Yao lying unconscious on the ground. Her face was pale and her body was lifeless. The corner of her mouth, her white dress, and the floor made of requiem wood were all stained with dark red blood. "Yao Yao!" Bailey Ningsu cried out in pain as tears immediately flowed out of her eyes. She rushed to Yun Yao's side and hugged the unconscious Yun Yao in her arms. She circulated her energy to check on Yun Yao's injuries. After a few breaths, Bailey Ningsu found that Yun Yao's body was on the verge of death and her soul was extremely weak. Most importantly, the Nirvana Divine Crystal in Yun Yao's body had disappeared. Bailey Ningsu turned to look at Ji Tianxing on the icy jade bed. She saw that his body was glowing red and was gradually recovering his vitality. She understood everything. Yao Yao. My daughter, why are you so stupid? Idiot. Idiot. Bailey Ningsu looked up at the sky and cried out in grief. Her body went limp as she fell to the ground. She hugged Yun Yao tightly in her arms as tears flowed out of her eyes uncontrollably. However, she was still the divine doctor's daughter and the mistress of the Yun family. She had experienced many storms and hardships in her life. Even though her heart was filled with grief, she quickly calmed down. She carried the unconscious Yun Yao out of the wooden house and left tranquil sky. Bailey Ningsu returned to the Thousand Cloud Palace as fast as she could. She anxiously opened the secret chamber and entered the dark starry sky. She placed Yun Yao in the center of the array and waved her hand to release rays of spiritual light, quickly activating the array. The huge array released an earth-shattering green spiritual light that flowed into Yun Yao's body continuously, instilling her with boundless vitality. Then, Bailey Ningsu quickly took out all kinds of elixirs and used her true essence to transform them into spiritual light before injecting them into Yun Yao's body. 6 hours later, after stabilizing Yun Yao's injuries, she took out a fiery red crystal from her interspatial ring. Without a doubt, this crystal that contained a mysterious power was another Nirvana Divine crystal. Bailey Ningsu naturally wouldn't keep such an important sacred item in her room. All these years, she had been carrying it in her interspatial ring. Bailey Ningsu stood above the formation and looked at the Nirvana God crystal with a solemn expression. She used a secret technique and shot out a few rays of 5-colored light, controlling the God crystal to slowly descend and fly towards Yun Yao's forehead. After a full 100 breaths of time, the Nirvana Divine crystal finally entered Yun Yao's forehead and entered the depths of her mind. After doing all this, Bailey Ningsu finally heaved a sigh of relief. She landed beside Yun Yao and looked at Yun Yao with a bitter smile. She murmured in a heavy and sorrowful tone, "Yao Yao, Yao Yao. Mother should have known that with your personality, you won't change your mind easily once you've made a decision. Once you've decided on someone, you won't change your mind. I don't know what kind of virtue or ability that young man has to actually make you disregard your own life and sacrifice your own to save him. If you want to use this method to force Mother to take out another Nirvana Divine crystal, you've already achieved your goal." Bailey Ningsu's tone was the same as her mood. It was full of sorrow, heaviness, and a strong sense of helplessness. Then, she sat down cross-legged beside Yun Yao. She formed a hand seal and used her Medicine Dao secret technique to help Yun Yao quickly absorb the Nirvana Divine crystal and recover from her injuries. The starry sky was always dark and cold. The surrounding scenery seemed to never change. Even though time passed quickly, no one noticed it. Unknowingly, 2 days passed. Bailey Ningsu continued to help Yun Yao heal her injuries. In these 2 days, she had consumed more than half of her strength. She looked a little tired. Fortunately, Yun Yao's injuries had stabilized. After her soul absorbed the Nirvana Divine crystal, it finally returned to normal. Although her body was still very weak, and her soul injuries would only recover after a few days of recuperation. But her consciousness gradually woke up and she slowly opened her eyes. When she woke up and saw the sky full of stars and the dark starry sky, she immediately understood her situation. She turned her head with difficulty and saw her mother, Bailey Ningsu, looking at her with a complicated expression. "Mother," Yun Yao called out in a hoarse and weak voice. Bailey Ningsu nodded and said with a calm expression, "Yao Yao, it's good that you're awake. Mother didn't expect that you would do such a ridiculous thing to save that young man without caring about your own life. Mother wasn't wrong. You've been bewitched and have lost your rationality." Bailey Ningsu clearly had a lingering fear and was shocked by Yun Yao's change. Seeing Yun Yao looking at her in silence, she said with an indifferent tone, "Yao Yao, Mother will lock you up here to prevent you from doing something even more ridiculous. Mother will only let you out when you change your mind. In the meantime, you should focus on recuperating and quietly reflecting on your mistake. From now on, Mother will never allow you to see Ji Tianxing again. The two of you are destined to never have a happy ending. Just forget about him." After saying that, Bailey Ningsu cast a spell and left the array. In the dark starry sky, Yun Yao was left alone, quietly lying in the array. When Bailey Ningsu said those words in a dignified tone, her eyes dimmed and a trace of regret gushed out from her heart. But she didn't say anything and silently endured everything. After a long time, she closed her eyes and whispered in a low voice, "Tianxing, perhaps we won't be able to meet again in the future. Although it's a pity, I don't regret it. Even if I had to do it all over again, I would still do it. As long as you can wake up and live well, I'll be satisfied." Even though her voice was soft, her tone was filled with determination and persistence. In tranquil sky, in the small wooden house on the mountain peak, Ji Tianxing was still lying on the ice jade bed, motionless and silent. As time passed, the Nirvana divine crystal in the depths of his mind constantly released a mysterious power to heal his injuries. His injuries were quickly recovering, and the scarlet brilliance lingering around his body became more and more intense and dazzling. Soon, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. His injuries were completely healed, and his soul finally returned to its place. It was only now that the dazzling red light lingering around his body gradually converged back into his body. In the evening, the red light completely faded away, and everything returned to normal. He gradually woke up and slowly opened his eyes. Eldest senior sister, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but blurt out these 3 words the moment he woke up. He sat up from the ice jade bed and looked around. He saw that the wooden house was empty, and Yun Yao wasn't in the house. There was only a smear of dark red blood left on the dark brown floor. Chapter 484. Ji Tianxing had been unconscious all this time. However, he knew that Yun Yao had taken out her Nirvana divine crystal and put it into his body. He could hear Yun Yao's voice and knew what she was doing, but he couldn't speak or stop her. Even though he didn't know how badly Yun Yao was injured, nor did he know how she was doing right now. However, he heard Bailey Ningsu's sorrowful cry and saw the bloodstains on the ground. His heart was filled with worry and anxiety. He just wanted to fly to Yun Yao's side immediately and see how she was doing. At this moment, a graceful and elegant figure silently appeared at the door of the wooden house. Ji Tianxing sensed her arrival and raised his head to look at her. When he saw the woman in a long brocade dress, he couldn't help but tremble and frown. In a trance, he thought he saw Yun Yao. After all, that woman looked too similar to Yun Yao. However, Ji Tianxing knew Yun Yao very well and could immediately tell that the woman wasn't Yun Yao. Her eyes and temperament were completely different from Yun Yao's. Moreover, her eyes and aura were somewhat cold, as if she didn't come with good intentions. Ji Tianxing immediately guessed her identity. She was Yun Yao's mother. He was silent for a moment before he stood up and bowed to Bailey Ningsu. However, he didn't say anything. He didn't know how to address Bailey Ningsu, nor did he know what else to say in this situation. Bailey Ningsu stood at the door and looked at him indifferently. She took the initiative to speak in a calm tone. "It's good that you're awake. Yao Yao didn't risk her life to save you in vain. However, since you're awake, it's time to leave." Bailey Ningsu ordered him to leave. Her tone was cold and indifferent. Ji Tianxing nodded and said calmly, "There's no need for Madame Yun to remind me. I will leave as soon as possible and won't disturb you any longer. However, before I leave, I want to see Yun Yao." The one he was most worried about was Yun Yao. If he couldn't see Yun Yao's injuries, he would feel uneasy. However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Bailey Ningsu. "No need. Yao Yao is in seclusion to heal her injuries and won't see you. Moreover, you're not related to my Cloud Spirit Palace, and you almost caused Yao Yao to lose her life. I'm already being very kind by not taking my anger out on you. From now on, you and Yun Yao will never see Yao Yao, and I won't allow her to see you again. If you know your place, then please behave yourself and don't bother her." Hearing Bailey Ning Su's words, Ji Tianxing immediately frowned. "Know my own place? Bother her?" He looked at Bailey Ning Su and said firmly, "Madam Yun Yao and I love each other and are willing to give up everything for each other. You've been through this before, so you should understand what it means to be connected, to share honor and disgrace, to live and die together. Moreover, you should know Yun Yao's nature better than I do. You should know that once she makes a choice, she won't change it. The same goes for me. Even if you try to stop me, you won't be able to change my feelings for Yun Yao." Bailey Ningsu raised her eyebrows and looked at Ji Tianxing coldly. She shook her head. "Ji Tianxing, it seems like you don't know your place. Moreover, you don't know enough about Cloud Spirit Palace. You don't know anything about the majesty and power of the imperial court. With your status, talent, and strength, you're not worthy of Yun Yao. You can't protect her, and you don't have the qualifications to be Cloud Spirit Palace's son-in-law. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but you don't have any outstanding qualities that are worthy of my respect." Although Bailey Ningsu's words were sharp and direct, Yun didn't back down. However, Ji Tianxing did not back down. His eyes were filled with determination and confidence as he said in a sonorous tone, "Madam Yun, everyone will grow and become stronger. I'm only 17 years old today. I don't have the qualifications to be Yun Yao's son-in-law. However, what about 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years from now? Can you see the future? Can you see my strength and situation at that time? I'm confident that I can become a powerhouse in a short year. It'll prove my talent and potential. Even if it's your favorite son of heaven, Long Yunshao, I can defeat him with my own hands." Bailey Ningsu couldn't help but frown when she saw how confident he was. A playful smile appeared on her face. She said indifferently, "You're indeed young and frivolous. Overconfidence has turned into arrogance." Ji Tianxing didn't back down. He said with equal harshness, "Since Madam Yun doesn't believe me, why don't you wait for a year and see the result? As long as Yun Yao has me in her heart, I will never give up. No matter if it's a bottomless abyss or a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, I will never turn back even if my body is crushed." Bailey Ningsu stared at him. She raised her eyebrows and a strange light flashed in her eyes. She nodded slightly and said earnestly, "I have to admit that you've made me look at you with a whole new level of respect. Since you're so confident, I'll give you a glimmer of hope and show you a clear path. The Monarch Mansion is the best academy in the Central State. It's also the strongest martial arts holy land in the profound Sky Continent. If you're really a hidden dragon, then you can enter the Monarch Mansion with your talent and strength. As long as you can become a disciple of the Monarch Mansion, you'll be famous in the profound Sky Continent and have the chance to become a transcendent. If you can successfully enter the Monarch Mansion, I won't stop you from being with Yun Yao." Ji Tianxing had never heard of the Monarch Mansion and didn't know how strong this martial arts holy land was. But after he heard Bailey Ningsu's words, he said without hesitation, "Thank you for your guidance, Madam Yun. Since that's the case, then it's settled. I will definitely enter the Monarch Mansion and prove my talent and strength. Please wait and see." Bailey Ningsu looked at him deeply and nodded. "Ji Tianxing, remember your words today." After she finished speaking, she turned and left the wooden house. Her figure quickly disappeared into the transportation array. Ji Tianxing looked at her departing figure. He silently clenched his fists and walked out of the wooden house. Not long after, he left the tranquil sky and walked out of the Nebula Palace. Under the lead of the guards, he passed through the heavily guarded and majestic palaces and arrived at the main gate of the Cloud Spirit Palace. At this moment, the sun was setting in the west, shining a golden light on the square outside the main gate. Ji Tianxing stood in the middle of the resplendent square and looked back at the magnificent Cloud Spirit Palace. He muttered in his heart, "Cloud Spirit Palace, I'll be back." Then, he condensed a pair of golden wings with his Kenshin battle robe. Like a golden rock, he spread his wings and flew high into the sky. Not long after, his figure disappeared into the white sea of clouds. 25 chapters completed, please reward me. Chapter 485. The Sky Pillar sect had just gone through a great calamity and was in the midst of rebuilding. Ji Tianxing was worried about the Sky Pillar sect, so he naturally had to go back. After leaving the Cloud Spirit Palace, he rode Qian Yu and sped through the sky, flying all the way to the south. Along the way, Qian Yu flew over thousands of mountains and rivers, crossing countless majestic cities. Ji Tianxing was high up in the sky, overlooking the mountains, rivers, and cities below. Only then did he see the bustling scene of the Central Plains. The Central Plains had beautiful mountains and rivers, abundant spirit qi, and abundant resources. One ancient city after another, each with a history of hundreds to thousands of years, lay quietly between heaven and earth, exuding an ancient and vigorous aura. In the huge cities, rows upon rows of palaces and buildings could be clearly seen, as well as bustling crowds and martial artists of all shapes and sizes. Many martial practitioners with imposing appearances were riding strange spirit beasts or birds, shuttling back and forth between the cities. Even if those people flew across the sky on spirit beasts and brushed past Ji Tianxing, they would not take a second look at him. In the 9 regions of the southern continent, those at the Yuan Dan realm could be called expert. However, in the Central Plains, those at the Yuan Dan realm could only be called expert. Only those at the Heavenly Origin realm could be called martial arts expert. After all, the Central Plains was the sacred land of martial arts in the Tianxian continent. This place had the most abundant spirit qi and resources, as well as the most elite martial arts and secret technique inheritances. There were as many experts as there were clouds in the Central Plains. True geniuses came forth in large numbers, and heroes competed for supremacy. Qian Yu flew for nearly 20 days before leaving the Central Plains. In these 20 days, Ji Tianxing crossed hundreds of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers and thousands of cities. He had a preliminary understanding of the Central Plains and increased his experience and knowledge. He deeply felt the vastness and prosperity of the Central Plains and saw a wider world. He secretly made up his mind to enter the Central Plains as soon as possible and establish a foothold here. Only in the Central Plains could he broaden his horizons and pursue a higher level of martial arts. The Central Plains, the sacred land where geniuses gathered, was a more splendid stage. Qian Yu flew for another 10 days and finally carried Ji Tianxing back to the Star Ancient Realm in the Tianqian region. 2.5 months had passed since that shocking battle. The haze and influence of the war had gradually dissipated, and the situation in the Star Ancient Realm had stabilized. Of the original 8 great sects, only 4 were left. The Tianjian sect, the Thousand Autumns sect, the True Martial sect, and the Windfire sect had all fallen apart. The power structure of the ancient Star Realm had been reshuffled, and the other 4 sects had seized the opportunity to occupy a large number of spirit veins and treasured lands. Not long after, Ji Tianxing returned to the Sky Pillar sect. He rode Qian Yu and flew above the Sky Pillar sect, looking down at everything within 100 miles. They saw that the Sky Pillar sect, which was originally in ruins, had taken on a new look. More than half of Heaven Raising Peak, Great Peace Peak, Jade Sword Peak, and Twin Moon Peak had been destroyed in that great battle. Now, the elders and disciples of the Sky Pillar sect worked together and spent 2 months to restore the 4 mountains to their original state. Row upon row of brand new palaces sat on the 4 mountains, reflecting dazzling golden light under the afternoon sun. When the demon emperor had broken the seal, the entire Scarlet Firmament Peak had collapsed and turned into ruins. After the Scarlet Firmament Peak disappeared, The spirit vein formation was also completely destroyed, leaving behind a huge pit with a radius of 20 miles in the ruins. Now, the abyss-like pit had long been filled in. The elders and thousands of disciples of the Sky Pillar sect spent a lot of effort to move a 1,000-meter-tall mountain and turn it into a brand new scarlet firmament peak. The 9 mountains were still intact and arranged according to their original positions. Although the 9 dragon spirit vein formation had not been repaired yet, the world's spirit energy was slowly recovering. The sky was blue and the sun was warm. The world's spirit energy was abundant, and the 9 mountains exuded a majestic aura. After the war, the Sky Pillar sect had mostly returned to its original state. It did not look much different from before the war. The disciples of the Sky Pillar sect had also recovered their vitality. They were either busy repairing the sect's buildings or cultivating. Everything had returned to normal. The Sky Pillar sect had already walked out of the haze of the Great Calamity. Ji Tianxing landed on the Scarlet Firmament Peak and landed on the square in front of the palace that had just been built. There were many disciples in the square. Under the leadership of several deacons, they were busy building the buildings around the square and planting some spirit trees and trees. When Ji Tianxing descended from the sky, everyone raised their heads to look at him. Their faces revealed pleasant surprise as they cheered. "Look, it's Senior Brother Tianxing. Senior Brother Tianxing is back. That's great. I knew that Senior Brother Tianxing's luck was great. Nothing will happen to him. Senior Brother Tianxing, our great hero is back." Not only were the dozens of disciples cheering in joy, even the deacons had gathered around with faces full of excitement. In a moment, everyone rushed into the square and surrounded Ji Tianxing. The scene of the sect suffering a great calamity and Ji Tianxing facing off against the demon emperor was deeply imprinted in everyone's minds, making it unforgettable for the rest of their lives. The surviving disciples of the Sky Pillar sect all remembered his indomitable aura and his valiant and heroic figure. From that moment on, almost all the disciples regarded him as their idol, a goal to learn from and emulate for the rest of their lives. In the 2 months after the end of the Great Battle, everyone learned that Ji Tianxing was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Everyone felt pained and worried. They silently prayed for him, hoping that he could wake up and recover soon. Now that the disciples saw that Ji Tianxing was safe and sound, their faces were flushed with excitement. Everyone crowded around him, talking and greeting him. Their voices were all very excited. "Senior Brother Tianxing, the scene of you fighting against the demon emperor is really unforgettable for the rest of my life. It's not just unforgettable for the rest of your life. The battle between Senior Brother Tianxing and the demon emperor was simply earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Senior Brother Tianxing, you're simply too mighty. Just like a god descending to the mortal world." There were also 2 deacons who said excitedly, "Tianxing, not only are you a great contributor to our Sky Pillar sect, but you're also a great hero who saved the Heavenly Stellar Ancient Realm and the Heavenly Stellar region. Previously, the Grand Elder proposed to erect a statue for you in the sect to engrave your contributions and deeds for future generations to admire and worship. This matter has received the approval of all the elders and deacons. All the disciples of the sect have also expressed their support. Look, that's the statue that the sect erected for you." Ji Tianxing looked in the direction that the deacon was pointing and saw a huge statue that was 100 meters tall at the edge of the square. Yesterday's outburst was too tiring. Little he had only slept for 4 to 5 hours for several days. His body could not take it anymore. Today, I'll update 5 chapters at once. At night, I'll update 1 or 2 chapters. Thank you for your understanding and support. Chapter 486. It was obvious that the statue had been built not long ago. It looked brand new and was shrouded in the golden sunlight. It looked holy and majestic. It was a lifelike statue, and its figure and appearance were basically the same as Ji Tianxing's. It was a sculpture of him fighting against the Devil Emperor. He stood at the edge of the square, facing the cliff. His eyes were fixed on the sea of clouds in front of him. He looked resolute and determined. His left hand was pointing to the ground. His right hand was raised and his palm was pointing to the sky. He was releasing his most powerful killing move. Anyone who saw this magnificent statue would be able to feel the unparalleled domineering aura, as well as the bravery and heroism of risking one's life without regard for one's safety. Ji Tianqing stared at the statue and sized it up. A hint of a smile could not help but flash in his eyes as he muttered to himself, "Senior Xiang is really something. He actually did this kind of false reputation thing." The two deacons smiled and said, "Tianqing, this is not for the sake of fame. This is the honor you deserve. Back then, you stepped forward bravely at the critical moment and fought against the Devil Emperor fearlessly. How heroic and impassioned you were back then. We all think that a statue of you is not enough. The Grand Elder said that the Grand Elder should record that battle and your deeds in the history book. He wants your name to go down in history." Go down in history? Ji Tianqing did not know whether to laugh or cry. These words sounded a little awkward. After all, he was still alive and well. Then, Ji Tianqing exchanged some pleasantries with the others. Then, he walked through the square and entered the new towering sky hall. The new towering sky hall was basically the same as the old one. Ji Tianqing entered the hall and saw that there was only one person in the empty hall. It was Xiang Wuji. Xiang Wuji was sitting in front of a table, reading books and scrolls. Apparently, he was dealing with the affairs of the sect. There were dozens of reports, letters, and scrolls on the table, waiting for him to read and deal with. Ji Tianqing understood with a single glance that in these 2 months, Xiang Wuji had to preside over the overall situation of the sect, and must be extremely busy. "Old Master, I'm back." He smiled and greeted Xiang Wuji. Xiang Wuji was deep in thought as he held a memorial in his hands. When he heard the voice, his body trembled. He suddenly raised his head and saw Ji Tianqing standing in the middle of the hall, looking at him with a smile. He immediately stood up, his face full of excitement as he said with a joyful tone, "Tianqing, why did you come back?" As he spoke, Xiang Wuji quickly walked in front of Ji Tianqing and sized him up with bright eyes. "Ha ha ha, your injuries and strength have all recovered. That's great. I've said it before. You brat, you're blessed with good fortune. You'll definitely be able to turn danger into safety and overcome this crisis." With that, Xiang Wuji pulled Ji Tianqing to a seat and impatiently asked, "Tianqing, quickly tell this old man, how did your injuries recover so quickly? Was it the Transcendent from Cloud Soul Palace who saved you? Where's Yun Yao? Did she come back with you?" Other than Yun Yao and Ji Ku, the happiest person to see Ji Tianqing fully recovered was Xiang Wuji. He was filled with joy and excitement as he asked a bunch of questions. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a complicated tone, "Old Master, this is a long story. Let me tell you slowly, then." He briefly recounted what had happened in Cloud Soul Palace. Xiang Wuji listened quietly. The smile on his face gradually disappeared and his mood became heavy. After a moment of silence, he could not help but let out a long sigh. "Sigh, I didn't expect this to be so complicated. Cloud Soul Palace is a mysterious and powerful family. They have a high status and a strong foundation. It's normal that they don't want to save you. Yun Yao, on the other hand, looks cold but has a strong personality. I can't believe she would make such a sacrifice for you. Brat, you and Yun Yao are in love. That's a great blessing. You can't let her down in this life." Ji Tianqing did not say anything. He only nodded silently. Xiang Wuji understood that he was a good man who valued friendship and loyalty. He did not say anything else and talked about another matter. "Tianqing, it's been more than 2 months since the end of the war. In these 2 months, thousands of disciples, elders, and deacons have completed the task of rebuilding the sect. Now we just have to wait for your master to come out of seclusion. Then, we can work together to repair the spirit vein formation. After the sect reactivates the spirit vein formation, it will take at most a few years to recover. Yesterday, I ordered the elders to start recruiting a large number of servants and new disciples. Moreover, after the Heavenly Sword sect and the Thousand Autumns sect were annihilated, a large amount of spirit veins and precious lands were emptied out, and the various elders are constantly occupying them. Ji Tianxing was relieved after listening to Xiang Wuji talk about the Sky Pillar sect's recent situation and the following arrangements. He nodded and said, "Master is still recuperating in seclusion. You have to worry about these trivial and complicated matters. I'm afraid you'll be busy for a long time." Xiang Wuji waved his hand and said with a solemn expression, "Although I'm busy dealing with the sect's affairs, it's nothing. I'm old but strong, so I can still handle it. However, I'm still worried about something. I feel a little uneasy." Ji Tianxing frowned and asked doubtfully, "What is it? Is it related to the Demon Emperor?" Xiang Wuji nodded and said, "That's right. Although you seriously injured the Demon Emperor and forced it to flee, there's been no news of it. In the past 2 months, there has been no news from the Devil Emperor. He hasn't caused any trouble, but this old man reckons that he is in seclusion to recuperate. I can't help but worry that the Demon Emperor might make a comeback after it recovers. Our sect has experienced a great calamity, and its vitality has been greatly damaged. If the Demon Emperor comes back, our sect won't be able to withstand it. Furthermore, not only will the Star Ancient Realm encounter a great calamity, but the Heavenly Stellar region and the Southern Continent's 9 regions might also be plunged into misery and suffering." Ji Tianxing nodded with a solemn expression and said, "Your worry is very reasonable. The Demon Emperor's strength at its peak was indeed terrifyingly powerful. Even if it only recovered 30% to 40% of its power, no one in the entire Southern Continent's 9 regions can resist it. In my opinion, only the Central Continent's Imperial Court can send powerhouses to resist or eliminate the Demon Emperor and prevent it from bringing disaster to the world." Imperial Court. Xiang Wuji hesitated for a moment before saying with a bitter smile, "Back then, before the great calamity arrived, the Imperial Court sent the Son of Heaven to preside over the overall situation. It's a pity that the Son of Heaven was also helpless about the Heavenly Stellar region situation and was even more powerless to stop the Fiend race's conspiracy. Now that the great calamity is over, it's even more impossible for the Imperial Court to send powerhouses to help. I reckon that the Imperial Court will only send people to search for the Demon Emperor's whereabouts and launch a pursuit. But the Demon Emperor is hiding in the dark, and we're all in the open. It's really impossible to guard against it." Chapter 487. As long as the Demon King was not eliminated, the Sky-bearing sect and the Tiantian region would not be at peace. This hidden danger had to be resolved as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing and Xiang Wuji both understood this point, but there was nothing they could do about it. They could not find the Demon King, nor did they have enough strength to eliminate the Demon King. At this point, the two of them fell silent, their hearts heavy. After a while, Xiang Wuji sighed and said helplessly, "A transcendent expert like the Demon King is not someone the human forces of the 9 regions of the Southern Land can fight against. We can only pray that the Demon King does not come back for revenge, and that the Imperial Court can eliminate him as soon as possible, or the experts of our race in the Monarch Mansion can eliminate him for the people." Ji Tianxing frowned when he heard the name, Monarch Mansion. "Old Master, you also know about the Monarch Mansion? Can you tell me more about it?" Xiang Wuji looked at him with surprise and explained, "The Monarch Mansion is the most mysterious school and martial arts holy land in the Tiantian continent. The top geniuses of all races aim to enter the Monarch Mansion. I have roamed the continent for 200 years, how can I not know about the Monarch Mansion? But you, kid, you have only stayed in the Central State for a few days, how do you know about the Monarch Mansion?" Ji Tianxing explained calmly, "When I left the Cloud Soul Palace, I made an agreement with Yun Yao's mother, Madame Yun. When I enter the monarch mansion, I can prove my talent and strength, and have the right to be with Yun Yao. At that time, Madame Yun will not stop me and Yun Yao. Only then did Xiang Wuji come to a realization and said with a nod, "So that's how it is." With the power and status of the Cloud Soul Palace, only the geniuses of the Monarch Mansion are qualified to be the son-in-law of the Cloud Soul Palace. Although Madame Yun looks down on people, it is understandable. Tianxing, you don't have to be so calculative with her. Also, I believe that with your talent, it won't be too difficult to enter the Monarch Mansion. Ji Tianxing nodded. Since I have made an agreement with Madame Yun, I will not go back on my words. No matter how powerful the Monarch Mansion is or how difficult it is to enter, I will not give up. Xiang Wuji saw the determination on his face and the determination in his voice. He nodded and praised, "Good. You should have this kind of ambition and confidence, kid. Moreover, this old man also approves of you entering the monarch residence to study." That was the top martial arts holy land on the continent, a mysterious force that even the imperial courts of various races feared. For thousands of years, the imperial residence had nurtured countless transcendent. They were all extraordinary characters whose names shook the continent. Tianxing, if you can enter the royal palace, you will have a chance to reach the transcendent stage. Whether it's for your martial arts future or for Yun Yao, you have to work harder and strive to enter the monarch mansion as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing memorized Xiang Wuji's words and nodded. I understand, I will definitely enter the monarch mansion. Xiang Wuji thought for a while and said, Tianxing, our sect has a treasure called the Destined Star Map. Your master once used that treasure to deduce the heavens and predict the future. He predicted that you would be the nemesis of the Devil Emperor. If the imperial court cannot kill the Devil Emperor as soon as possible, the heavy responsibility of killing the Devil Emperor will fall on your shoulders. Although you are not strong enough now, you have the Kenshin bloodline. One day, you will become a transcendent and kill the Devil Emperor. If you stay in our sect, you will only be able to reach the heaven stage. You will not be able to surpass the celestial stage. Therefore, after a while, you will leave for the middle state and find a way to enter the monarch mansion. Only in the monarch mansion will you be able to grow faster and become a transcendent. You will be able to kill the Devil Emperor. Xiang Wuji's eyes were filled with anticipation and his tone was solemn. Clearly, he had high hopes for Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing of course understood this. He nodded and said in a serious tone, Don't worry, old man. I will not let you down. Only then did Xiang Wuji reveal a trace of a smile and said in an amiable tone, All right, you just came back from the central continent and must be tired from the long journey. Quickly go and rest. Ji Tianxing got up and bid farewell. He left the sky-raising palace. He had just returned to his residence and was about to rest when someone came to visit him. He got up and opened the door to see a cute girl standing outside. It was Jiku. Jiku was a little excited, and her eyebrows were full of joy. When she saw Ji Tianxing, she couldn't help but cry out in surprise, Big brother Tianxing, you're really back. I heard from the other disciples that you're back. I didn't dare to believe it and thought they were lying to me. I didn't think you would recover so quickly. This is great. You're finally fine. This is great. Perhaps because she was too excited, Jiku actually cried tears of joy. Her clear eyes were filled with tears. Seeing her reaction, Ji Tianxing revealed a gentle smile and reached out to wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Cuckoo, don't cry. I'm fine now. NN. Jiku nodded. She wiped away the tears in her eyes and an excited smile appeared on her face. Then, Ji Tianxing led her into the house. The two of them sat down, and only then did they start chatting freely. Brother Tianxing, you don't know how worried I was when you were in a coma for the past few days. I was so scared that you wouldn't wake up and never see me again. Jiku looked at Ji Tianxing with fear in her eyes. Ji Tianxing smiled and comforted her with a few words. He also thanked her for taking care of him during those days. The two of them chatted for a while before someone came to visit. It was Yen. He had heard the news from the disciples and came to visit with excitement. Over the past 2 months, Yen had been thinking about Ji Tianxing. He had been worried and praying for him. After entering the house, when he saw that Ji Tianxing was safe and sound, his face was full of excitement. Ji Tianxing chatted with Yen for a while and comforted him. Only then did he calm down. Then, the three of them chatted in the room and talked about the recent events in the Star Ancient Realm. After that great calamity, the power of the Star Ancient Realm had been reduced by half and the structure had been reorganized. The Tianjian sect, Thousand Autumns sect, and the other 3 sects had fallen apart and were destroyed. After listening to Ji Ku and Yen narration, Ji Tianxing found out that the surviving members of the 4 sects had internal strife and caused many jokes and absurd things. When talking about the destruction of the 4 sects, the 3 of them still had lingering hatred and cursed that the 4 sects deserved it. After the 3 of them finished talking about the various sects, the topic returned to the Sky Pillar sect. Ji Ku and Yen were very pleased with the progress of the Sky Pillar sect's recovery and reconstruction in the past 2 months. The two of them pulled Ji Tianxing out of the room and wanted to take him to see the changes in the Sky Pillar sect. Of course, Ji Tianxing readily accepted the good advice and did not refuse. Chapter 488. When Ji Tianxing had returned to the Sky Pillar sect, he had overlooked the sect's situation from high up in the sky. At that time, he only saw the 9 mountain peaks reappearing and the sect returning to its original state. Now, he had walked around the various mountain peaks and found that the spirit qi in the sect was weak. It was still somewhat desolate and dilapidated. Some forests and herb gardens had been destroyed and were still bare. They could not be restored in a short period of time. Many palaces and buildings were damaged, but only the houses were repaired and the protective array of the palaces and buildings had not been set up. Even the inner and outer sect disciples only had temporary residences. They did not have a secret room for cultivation, nor did they have sufficient cultivation resources. In short, it would take a long time for the Sky Pillar sect to recover. Ji Tianxing, Ji Ku, and Yen chatted for a long time and finally talked about Yun Yao. Yen looked at him with some doubt and asked with concern, "Senior brother Tianxing, why didn't senior sister come back with you? Will she never come back here again after she goes home?" Ji Ku was also very concerned about this issue and asked, "Brother Tianxing, senior sister brought you back to Zhongzhou to find a way to treat your injuries. Now that you have recovered and returned to the sect, senior sister did not come back. Could it be that there was some unforeseen event?" Ji Tianxing was silent for a moment before he explained to the two of them. After Ji Ku and Yen heard his words, their expressions and emotions became a little complicated. Yen pursed her lips tightly. Her eyes were filled with confusion and anger. She said in a deep voice, "That Cloud Spirit Palace is too unreasonable. It's really hateful. Senior brother Tianxing, you and senior sister are so in love. You are simply a golden couple, a match made in heaven. You can do anything for each other, even risking your lives to protect each other, just like my father and mother. Why does that hateful Cloud Spirit Palace want to stop you two from being together?" Ji Ku's mood became even more complicated. She lowered her head slightly, not daring to look at Ji Tianxing's eyes. She was silent, but she thought to herself, "In the past, I always thought that I was the one who loved brother Tianxing the most and that I would definitely be with him. Who would have thought that eldest senior sister, who looked cold and arrogant, would have such a strong personality? Grand senior sister was deeply in love with big brother Tianxing. She was willing to sacrifice her life to save him. It's a pity that I'm too weak to help big brother Tianxing. However, I also love big brother Tianxing deeply. I'm willing to risk my life for him." Ji Tianxing saw that the atmosphere was a little tense, so he calmly comforted Ji Ku and Yen. "The two of you don't have to be so angry, and you don't have to worry about me and eldest senior sister. How could a powerful force like Cloud Soul Palace easily accept a nobody like me? However, being unknown is only temporary. I will soon set foot in Central Continent and fulfill my promise. It won't be long before I'll make Cloud Soul Palace look at me in a different light and make them stop obstructing me and eldest senior sister. Hearing this, Jiku and Yen both looked at him in confusion. Senior brother Tianxing, are you going to Central State? Big brother Tianxing, why are you going to Central State? Ji Tianxing said solemnly, in a few days, I'll go to Central State and find a way to enter the Imperial Residence. Only by entering the Imperial Residence can I be recognized by Cloud Soul Palace and be worthy of eldest senior sister. The Imperial Residence is the most mysterious and powerful holy land of martial arts in Central State. Only the top geniuses of various clans. After listening to his explanation, Jiku and Yen understood the whole story. Jiku said without hesitation, Big brother Tianxing, I want to go to Central State with you. No matter where you go, I'll go with you. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and was about to dissuade him. At this time, Yen also hurriedly said, Senior brother Tianxing, you can't leave me alone. I want to go to Central State with you. Ji Tianxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out and touched Yen-er's head and asked, Yen-er, I'm going to Central State to fulfill my promise and clear my name. Why are you going to Central State with me? Do you also want to enter the Imperial Residence? Yen looked up at him with innocent eyes and asked doubtfully, Can't I? Central State is so prosperous, and the Imperial Residence is a holy land of martial arts. Of course I want to go and experience it and pursue a more profound martial arts realm. Ji Tianxing was startled for a moment. Only then did he remember that Yen was not only the crown prince of the Fire Clan, but also had 2 heavenly bloodlines. With Yen-er's talent to reach the Origin Core realm at the age of 11, he was also a rare top genius. If he wanted to enter the Imperial Residence, it shouldn't be too difficult. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but chuckle. I forgot that Yen, you are the #1 genius of our sect. It won't be difficult for you to enter the Imperial Residence. However, your parents entrusted you to master and let you cultivate in the Sky-bearing sect. If you want to go to Central State, you can't make the decision on your own. You have to report to Master and your parents first and ask for their permission. Yen pursed his lips and nodded. Okay, then I'll send a message to my parents later and ask for their opinion first. As for Master, I can only wait for him to finish healing and then report to him. And that's right. Ji Tianxing nodded with a smile and looked at Jiku again. Cuckoo, although Central State is prosperous and the martial arts realm is prosperous, there are various forces mixed in and it will be more dangerous. I have a reason to go to Central State, but I don't want you to take risks with me. It will be safer for you to stay in the Sky-bearing sect. Jiku didn't listen to his dissuasion. She looked at him firmly and said in an unquestionable tone, Big brother Tianxing, Ku can listen to you about anything except this. From the day I left the Clear Sky Empire with you, I have already sworn in my heart that I will follow you for the rest of my life. No matter where you go, I will follow you. Even if it is a mountain of swords and a sea of flames, I will not shrink back. Ji Tianxing looked at her persistent eyes and didn't know how to persuade her for a while. Jiku continued, Big brother Tianxing, I know myself. With my talent, I may not be able to enter the Monarch Mansion. However, I don't have extravagant hopes of entering the Monarch Mansion, nor do I want to become a top genius. I just want to go to Central State with you. I'm satisfied to be able to accompany you. Since Jiku had already said so, what else could Ji Tianxing say? He could only nod with complicated feelings and said, Cuckoo, since you have made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. Don't worry, I won't leave you alone. When I leave, I will definitely take you with me to Central State. Seeing that he finally agreed, Jiku's face was full of smiles and her heart was filled with joy. Regarding the matter of going to Central State, the three of them decided. Not long after, the three of them bid farewell to each other and returned to their respective residences. Ji Tianxing entered the secret chamber to recuperate while Yen-Er quickly sent a message to the Fire Emperor and Fire Empress to ask for their opinion. Chapter 489. Soon, 5 days had passed. During these 5 days, Ji Tianxing had been recuperating in the secret room. Since he had fused with the Nirvana Divine Crystal, his injuries and strength had completely recovered. Moreover, his soul had become even stronger, and his soul energy was surging, causing his mind and spiritual sense to become even stronger. The spiritual sense of an ordinary 9th-level origin core martial artist could only explore an area of 90 meters. His soul energy was even stronger, and the range of his spiritual sense was twice as much as a martial artist of the same level. Most importantly, the battle with the Devil Emperor and the experience of his soul being separated from his body had stimulated an even stronger potential. His strength had imperceptibly increased, and he was getting closer and closer to the Heaven Origin stage. However, the shackle between the Origin Core stage and the Heaven Origin stage was a hurdle that countless martial artists were unable to cross. Ji Tianxing was unable to determine when he would be able to break through the shackle and advance to the Heaven Origin stage. He guessed in his heart that he might need an opportunity to advance to the Heaven Origin stage. This morning, his essence, energy, and spirit had all recovered to their peak state, so he finished recuperating and walked out of the secret room. He had just walked out of the secret room when the black-robed guard guarding outside respectfully reported a piece of news. Tianxing, Lord Sect Master, has already come out of seclusion last night. Lord Sect Master has instructed you to go to the study to see him after you come out of seclusion. Suddenly hearing this news, Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Master has only been in seclusion for 3 months, and he actually came out of seclusion so quickly? Could it be that his injuries have already healed? That's great. He felt puzzled in his heart, but he also felt gratified and excited. Presently, the Sky Pillar Sect's situation was not stable yet, and they were extremely short on manpower. It was difficult to support it with just Xiang Wuji alone. If Chu Tianxing's injuries were healed, he would be able to regain the authority of the sect master and manage the various affairs of the sect. That was naturally excellent. Ji Tianxing hurriedly left the secret room and quickly rushed to the study in Sky Pillar Hall. After a short while, he entered the spacious, bright, clean, and elegant study and saw Chu Tianxing, whom he had not seen for a long time. Chu Tianxing, wearing a golden robe, was sitting at his desk, reading through the papers, concentrating on handling the affairs of the sect. His face was still a little pale, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. His eyes were also a little dim, not as sharp and dignified as before. Furthermore, he still had a head full of white hair. Ji Tianxing stepped into the study and cupped his hands in salute. Disciple pays respect to master. When Chu Tianxing heard his voice, he quickly put down the things in his hands and turned his head to look at him. Tianxing, come in quickly. Master has been waiting for you for a long time. Chu Tianxing smiled amiably and waved at him. Ji Tianxing walked to the desk and asked with concern, Shizuan, why did you come out early? Have your injuries healed? Chu Tianxing lightly shook his head, his tone calm as he said, while your master was in seclusion healing in the immortal cave, I was worried about our sect's safety, so after stabilizing my injuries, I came out of seclusion ahead of time. Although your master's injuries haven't healed completely, it's not a big problem. After another year of recuperation, I'll be completely healed. After saying this, he looked at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes, his face full of praise. I didn't think that in the 3 months that your master was in seclusion, our sect would encounter such a monstrous calamity. If you hadn't turned the tide and forced the Demon Emperor to retreat, our sect would have been annihilated a long time ago. Tianxing, your performance was just too shocking. Your master can't believe it. Obviously, after Chu Tianxing came out of seclusion, he had already understood what had happened. His pale face was full of smiles, his eyes full of gratification and pride. Ji Tianxing said calmly, "Shizhuan, those things are already in the past. Moreover, it wasn't just me who forced the demon emperor to retreat. Hundreds of people in our sect worked together to seriously injure the demon emperor, forcing him to flee." Chu Tianxing raised his hand to interrupt him, his voice firm. "Tianxing, you don't need to be humble. You are the hero who saved our sect and the heavenly stellar region." After pausing for a moment, he continued, "After your master came out of seclusion, I already talked to the Grand Elder. I also know that you were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Yun Yao brought you back to Cloud Soul Palace. I heard the Grand Elder say that you are preparing to head to Central State and enter the Monarch Palace?" Ji Tianxing nodded. "Shizhuan, I was just about to report this to you and ask for your opinion." Chu Tianxing smiled. "You have a reason to go to the Monarch Palace, so why would your master stop you? Moreover, if you enter the Monarch Palace, not only will you have a brighter future, you will also gain the recognition of Cloud Soul Palace. Your master and the Grand Elder have the same thoughts. We both support your decision to head to Central State and enter the Monarch Palace. Thank you, Shizhuan, for your help." Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and bowed. Chu Tianxing waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need to be so polite. He said with some emotion, "Back then, your master used the star map to predict that our sect would encounter a great calamity and your master would die. Therefore, your master made arrangements in advance, hoping to help you fight for a chance to survive. Your master only thought that even if the sect was destroyed and I died in the calamity, it was nothing. As long as you, Yun Yao, and Yen could survive and head to Central State to grow and gain experience, you would have a chance to take revenge in the future. However, man proposes, God disposes. I didn't expect that as soon as your master's plan was carried out, the demon clan would assassinate me and I had to go into seclusion to heal. Not long after, the calamity broke out and the demon emperor also broke the seal." Ji Tianxing listened to Chu Tianxing's words and frowned in confusion. "Shizhuan, you had a plan to let us leave the sect and head to Central State?" Chu Tianxing nodded. "That's right. You should remember that your master once asked you to go to the Beast King Valley to deliver something to the Beast King. In fact, your master wanted to ask the Beast King to take care of you and ask him to go to Central State first to make preparations. After he is ready in Central State, your master will let you leave the sect and go to Central State to find him." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing came to a sudden realization. He finally understood. No wonder before the great calamity broke out, Shizhuan asked me to go to the Beast King Valley to deliver something to the Beast King. It turns out that Shizhuan had predicted that he would die in battle and that the Sky Pillar sect would be destroyed. Therefore, he had already made preparations and thought of a way out for us. Unfortunately, the development of things later exceeded Shizhuan's expectations and control, so he couldn't carry out his plan smoothly. Ji Tianxing stared at Chu Tianxing and asked, "Shizhuan, that senior Beast King, is he still in Central State?" Chu Tianxing nodded and said, "Of course he is in Central State and he is ready. In 2 days, you, Yen Jiku, and the others will go to Central State to find the Beast King. You are very unfamiliar with Central State, so it will be inconvenient for you to do things. Only with the Beast King taking care of you can your master be at ease.